stopped.
The vast majority are children, working people, older Americans, veterans, and people with disabilities.
He also says food banks and other charities can nowhere near make up for the loss of $8 billion in federal funding. The Agriculture Department has told states there's not enough money for full SNAP funding in November, so payments are on hold. In a statement to NPR, an agency spokesperson blamed Senate Democrats for keeping the government shut down. Jennifer Ludden, NPR News, Washington.
A new study shows Florida's restriction on cell phones in schools has led to improved student behavior and attendance, along with higher test scores. From Central Florida Public Media, Danielle Pryor has more.
A report published in the National Bureau of Economic Research found suspensions spiked during early adoption of Florida's 2023 restrictions on cell phones in schools. But after the first year, disciplinary actions were down, and by the second year, fewer kids were absent from class and test scores had improved. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis says no phones is a win-win for students and teachers.
Who wants to dedicate their life to sitting in front of a group of kids that all have their face buried in the phone?
Some 30 states and the District of Columbia now restrict cell phones in some way during school. For NPR News, I'm Danielle Pryor in Orlando.
You're listening to NPR News from Washington.
Good morning. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. The Lowell, Massachusetts man with brain cancer who'd been held in ICE detention in Georgia is free on bond and is heading home. As Rachel Sanchez-Smith reports from our New England News Collaborative, his health worsened while in custody over the last month.
ICE officers in Methuen detained Afghan national Ihsanullah Garai after he asked for directions, despite having legal work authorization and no criminal record. His lawyer, Hans Bremer, says Garai's medical condition worsened in detention. His speech was slurred, he looked lethargic, and suffered from more frequent seizures. Bremer also says that Garai received multiple letters of support from members of Congress, military officials, and community members backing his release. Garai's next immigration and asylum hearing is set for next month. For the New England News Collaborative, I'm Rachel Sanchez-Smith.
GBH News has added another affiliate to its Connecting the Commonwealth roster of newsrooms across the state. We've partnered with the Worcester Guardian as a way to expand our and their in-depth coverage of civic issues in central Massachusetts. The collaboration focuses on local reporting that highlights challenges and opportunities in Worcester, including elections, housing, education, public health, and the local economy. The Worcester Guardian is a nonprofit newsroom that also has partnerships with Worcester State University and Boston University, which help support its reporting and community engagement work. 54 degrees in Boston right now. I'm Henry Santoro. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Sony Pictures Classics, presenting Blue Moon, a new film directed by Richard Linklater, starring Ethan Hawke, Margaret Qualley, Bobby Cannavale, and Andrew Scott. Now playing select cities, opens everywhere Friday.
Hey, it's Jim Brady. I am Marjorie Yeagan. Welcome to BPR on GBH and NEPM. We are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. I want to tell you again, we're going to be back at the Boston Public Library tomorrow with a really, really good show. We're going to be joined by Doris Kearns Goodwin at 11:30. She, of course, is the famed historian who wrote, I think, the best book. Well, I haven't read them all, but one of the best books, certainly on Abraham Lincoln. That would be Team of Rivals, the 20th anniversary of its publication. And also the mayor of Boston, Michelle Wu, will be here with us from noon to 1 for another edition of Ask the Mayor, taking our questions and yours also at the library. Hi, Jim.
Abraham Lincoln, second greatest president ever. I heard last week, actually, from the current one. So we're beginning the day with a brief respite from our typically miserable death of democracy. Can you believe what Trump is saying or doing daily coverage? That's why you tuned in today. Sorry, you're going to have to wait at least 20 minutes till we get to
Yeah, we
Andrea
thought we'd
Cabral.
take a 20-minute break for our blood pressure,
Well, but
our
this
mental
is actually
health.
an important issue, actually.
It is an important issue.
But for the first part of today's show, we're inspired by an encouraging development, believe it or not, on Beacon Hill. I know what you're thinking. I didn't believe it either. Although knowing the legislature will probably not happen, There's a proposal to rein in the full-blown automation takeover, at least as it's related to those self-checkout kiosks at grocery stores. It's not quite the job killer that AI has potential to be, but it's something we're all familiar with, so we thought we'd talk about it because the legislature is trying to limit the number of self-checkout kiosks to 8. I don't know why it's 8. Maybe require grocery stores to staff one manual checkout aisle for every 2 kiosks, or maybe you'll do nothing like almost all other bills. 877-301-8978, call or text. We want to know, do you want someone to limit self-checkout takeover of every store not named Market Basket? Because, of course, Market Basket, at least for now, under Demoulas, has no those no human checkouts. Are you worried, like, for example, our colleague Aiden apparently is, you won't be able to, let's call it self-discount dozens of Honeycrisp apples by scanning them as those cheapo Red Delicious? Are you a grocery store worker who's been anxious about your job security since these things became commonplace? Are you a job-killing shopper who's choosing self-checkout every time, even if there's an open lane with a human being? Again, the number is 877-301-8970. And again, this is easier to rein in if they choose to, and if you want them to, than AI, for example. It's a concrete thing. So 877-301-8970. I know we've had this discussion briefly before. Are you a self-checkout kind of person? I can't remember.
I've done it depending. I've done it.
Well, depending on what?
Depending on if there's a long line of, sometimes you get to the grocery store or the CVS or something, there's a long line, then I go to the self-checkout because it's often faster, even though, we'd have to listen to when you're at the self-checkout at CVS all the time. Can we play a little?
We have it. Here it is. Here's the CVS. You've only heard this about 3 million times. It's the help is on the way one. Go ahead.
Please wait. System processing.
This is like literally toward the Guantanamo. They played this.
It is.
Help is on the way. We forgot the help is on the way.
Help is on the way.
But
here's the thing. Imagine if you worked at CVS and you had to listen to that like 5,000 times a day.
Okay, but that's not really the issue.
Well, it is the issue. It's another argument for no self-checkouts.
I want to be clear here. I totally subscribe in the abstract to what you said a minute ago. I'm assuming it's true. Mm-hmm. If the lines are really long in the self-checkout, it's an excuse. I am embarrassed to say, well, I like to see myself as someone I'm totally pro-worker.
Man of the people?
Occasionally, for speed and convenience, I do something that I really mean it. It's irresponsible. I just do self-checkout.
Buying something you don't want people to see.
You know what's also...
you never
what?
I might be buying something embarrassing.
Like what?
You might be buying some virility pills.
Okay. No, that's what I sold at the old radio station, allegedly. Now,
you want to keep that under wraps.
Okay, here's the point. What was the point? When you read these stories, there are actually some huge chains, and I was really heartened by this when I read it this morning.
Yeah, that have
eliminated self-checkout. But by the way, and the reason I was excited was because I thought they were standing up for their workers. They're not. No, I'm serious. The only reason any of these chains give for eliminating self-checkout is because of theft. People do what we were joking about Aiden doing, saying it's an orange, it's 20 cents a pound as opposed to Honey Crisp for $3.99 a pound. None of them, at least none of what I read, said we want to protect these workers who've been loyal to us. Remember how much we loved grocery checkout people during the pandemic for about 30 seconds?
They were heroes.
Exactly.
American heroes. Well, I didn't realize there was so much checkout rage, Jim. Apparently, NBC Boston did a story about how people screaming at people, employees, grocery store workers feel under siege by people who... there's a lot of free-floating anger around the United States of America now. And apparently people are taking it out on the people that come over to rescue them when something goes wrong at the self-checkout station. They get angry at them and rage and yell and scream at them, and workers have had that too. And also, I didn't think of this, but there was a really good story about the self-checkout at Fenway Park where one of the workers there was complaining because she used to, be at the regular checkout and she'd be with her other workers and they get the food and drink, whatever it was. And now she has to monitor the self-checkouts. What she doesn't get anymore is tips.
Yeah.
She doesn't get any more tips
and
half her income.
Right. So even if it doesn't cost the job, which it does. By the way, you apparently can buy beer through self-checkout. I don't know how you monitor underage kids from drinking, but in any case. But would you not agree, and again, I am an occasional violator, so I'm embarrassed by this, but I try not to be as much as possible. Every time you check out, you're basically voting with your money to fire a worker or reduce the hours of worker. I mean, there is a direct causal connection. Would you not agree with that?
Yeah, well, as usual,
Good, thank you.
this bill is
Forget the bill. I mean,
it's too much. It's
who
too
the hell
much
knows
regulation.
what it is?
Well, they won't do it because they don't ever do anything.
Yeah.
We just heard about Florida. They've already banned the cell phones. You think this legislature is going to
in schools
ban the cell phones this year? Maybe we have to wait 5
Senate's
years.
already doing this, I think, so it only needs the House.
Yeah,
I guess they won't be doing it. Okay, let's take some calls. 877-301-8970.
But they're saying too much in this. It's requiring one employee to supervise every 2 self-checkouts. That seems a little excessive. You don't need one employee for every 2.
Well, yeah, how do you, Marjorie, you know nothing about, how do you know what you need?
Because most places you have one employee for like 4 or 5 or 6.
Well, maybe you should have all employees instead of any self-checkout things.
It's more jobs if you have...
I think you're not telling the truth about when you use the self-checkout. I'm looking in your eyes.
You think I'm a self-checkout addict?
I think you might be. Let's go to Anne in Westminster. Westminster, yeah, you're first on BPR. Welcome to the show. Hi.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah. Oops, sorry.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, that was my phone going off there. Got all excited.
Jim
Go
was
ahead.
placing bets in the NBA.
Maybe.
And they have the fastest human people that check you out possible, and they're lovely. They sit down. They're actually required to sit down. They're tested on how fast they are, and they also have self-checkout, and I absolutely hate them. But I love going to Aldi's because they're fabulous, and I have my little micro conversations with these humans, which are lovely. So Aldi's is great.
Well, let me tell you something, Ann, that you're unaware of. You're going to feel even better. Many Aldi stores, we read this morning, not all, obviously, many Aldi stores are eliminating self-checkout. Again, not because they care about the workers like you care about the workers, but because there's a theft problem in some of the stores. So that was a nice tribute to real people. I love that. Ann, thanks for the call.
I've never seen a self-checkout at Trader Joe's. Have you? They have very, very...
I only go to 1 or 2 Trader Joe's.
If you go to Trader Joe's, they have really, really long lines, but they move really quickly.
Move.
You know why? Because they have about...
Nicole says they don't have self-checkout.
Yeah, I don't think so. They have about 6 or 8 people at the cash registers. They go really fast.
Another good reason for Market Basket and Trader Joe's, I hadn't thought about Trader Joe's, is they actually value the humans in the damn place.
Yeah, you could be the 20th person in line in Trader Joe's. You're still out in 5 minutes.
Can you imagine if people are so willing to use self-checkout, which is sort of like a primitive technology, can you imagine what AI is going to do and how willing people are going to be to embrace AI rather than work with a human?
Well, as I've said before, the big thing about AI that's such a tragedy is that all those cute puppy videos everybody used to watch them for hours, Jim.
I still watch them for hours.
We don't know if they're real or AI, and if they're AI, it kind of takes the thrill out of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Anonymous texter, I guess I'm a job killer because I hate places that don't have self-checkout. I love self-checkout. I wish everyone had self-checkout everywhere. Boomers are the only ones that need a person to wait on them at a cash register.
There is a real age divide. You almost never see older people in the self-checkout. I mean, they're...
No, because there's a boomer at the at Whole Foods when I went yesterday.
Yeah.
There are actually 2, and they're both saying the exact, who am I and why am I here? Both of them were saying it almost in sync, and they weren't even there together.
They'll be confused. I'm already confused. I'll be really confused in a few years. Okay, 877-301-8970. Ron from Seabrook. Hi, Ron.
Hey, Ron.
Good morning. Thanks for taking my call.
Of course.
I don't have any answers. I never do. But
neither do we, Ron. We're with you.
Yeah, I know.
It's an honest man. Go ahead, Ron.
But when I can feel guilt, like you mentioned, where, self-checkout might be taking a job away from someone. But I struggle with the concept of living wage in general. Does every job deserve a person be paid enough to...
Yeah, why wouldn't what would be the reason? Wait, Ron, what would be the reason that anybody should not make a so-called living wage, whatever you determine it to be? Why should any job be exempted? Go ahead.
Well, it's not whether or not a job is exempt, it's whether or not a task has been recognized as something that requires a person to do.
Oh, so you're saying
if
well, you're not talking about living wage. You're saying it is appropriate in certain circumstances where it's a money saver. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. I just want to understand. It is appropriate if it can be done. Let it be done by a machine. That's what you're saying, right?
That's what I mean.
Yeah,
I guess.
No, you're an honest guy. You're a frequent caller. We really like you. But that is buying into what is going to be, as I say, a threat of magnitude zillion times more. AI is going to dwarf this self-checkout thing, and I think that's dangerous. But having said that, we love when you call. Ron, thanks for your call. Appreciate it.
Okay, here's Buster. Checkout. I make sure I steal enough food to be the same as an employee discount.
Have you ever done that, by the way? Tell the truth here about self-checkout.
No,
like, for example, at Whole Foods, it's tempting. I've never done it. I want to be clear. Organic costs more than non-organic. And, like, you get an apple, and you type in the kind of apple, and what comes up on the screen is organic apple for like $112 a pound and a regular apple for like $1 a pound. Isn't there some temptation?
Well, my experience is that even the produce now has a sticker on the bottom. And
no.
Yeah.
It does?
Yeah. Well, that's what I've...
Really?
Yes. But you can choose it at some places, but some places they have the sticker on the bottom. Now, here's someone who says, my daughters and I love self-checkout. 1, to scan the stuff. That's fun. 2, so we can pretend to be a supermarket employee, although we do regularly screw it up and we need to be rescued by the actual employee. But, I mean, that's one. You go with your kids. Carrie in Southborough, that was from... you go with your kids, it might be kind of a fun little math kind of deal to do it.
What's the math part of it? If you're just scanning the thing, what's the math part?
Because you learn how much things cost.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
Not really.
a lot of people have no idea how much things cost.
Yeah.
This person says they were at Target last week and there were literally 0 cashiers. That's Cheryl from Hanover. Does Target have no cashiers?
I was at a Star Market the other day because it was closer to me, and there were no cashiers. It was early in the morning. That was pretty depressing, I should say. But we're getting away from
Someone's complaining about the Stop and Shop robot. It says it's creepy.
It is creepy.
It is creepy. Yeah.
What's it called? It's got a name.
I don't know.
It?
Bob.
No, it's not Bob. It might be Bob. Could you find out for us and let us know? Let's go to Anthony in Westwood. We're talking about the legislature is actually considering limiting self-checkout at, I think, just grocery stores. I'm not sure. Hi there. Welcome.
Hey, Jim. Hi, Marjorie.
Hi. Thank you for calling.
Yeah, so I think what happened was we added self-checkout to most grocery stores, mostly to reduce the staff. So reducing the staff, more self-checkout, and then what that caused was longer lines at the self-checkout, and then longer lines, of course, then at the cash registers, and now it's this dichotomy where now it's too long at the self-checkout. We don't have enough people. And Marjorie, what you said, at Trader Joe's, they have so many staff working.
They do.
And that's and the lines go quick. We need more people back. We need more people back at work, at the actual cash register. That's what I think.
Yeah, sometimes it's kind of nice while they're checking your stuff to kind of chit-chat a little bit with the cashier, too. You know what I mean? That's kind of nice.
I go to the Trader Joe's on Boylston a lot.
Yeah.
And just like you said, it's super quick. I mean, it could be a line that's 30 people long, but you get through it in a few minutes.
Yeah,
but doesn't it weird you out that one's underground? I don't know what it is, but is that weird to you, Anthony, or is that just a me thing?
I like it. Okay. I love it.
Okay. I'm not used to shopping underground, I guess, since Filene's basement. Anthony, that was a fine call. Appreciate
Marty
it.
is the name of the Stop and Shop robot. There's a picture of it there. It's looking a little weird, I think, with the big eyes.
It's also spying on you. You know what it's doing. It's taping you, sending it to ice.
I think there's a lot of
Maureen,
stealing going on here, Jim.
Why?
Well, here's just yet another of many texts referencing this. Of course, it's anonymous. I was fully against self-checkout at first, particularly when I worked at a grocery store 20 years ago and was assigned to attend them for 3 months straight, with even here 20 years ago. Anyway, since adopting quote-unquote self-discounting only at exploitative chain retailers, of course, he is no longer opposed.
Did you answer my question when I asked you if you'd ever done that? Have you ever self-discounted?
No.
Yes, you have. Yes, of course you have.
Jim, that's stealing.
Really?
Thou shalt not steal.
I have to. One time, this wasn't stealing because it wasn't intentional. I actually got a steak at Whole Foods, and I forgot.
You said it was a banana?
I thought it was arugula. I was distracted, and I said it was an ounce of arugula. Maureen from Bradford.
Arugula's not cheap either.
It was only an ounce. Maureen from Bradford nailed it. I hate self-checkout. Unless I get paid and get paid vacation for doing their work, I will continue to use a person. Here's the exact same thing. Diane from Milford, New Hampshire. The store better pay me a salary if they want me to do a self-checkout. I'm not doing that work for free.
Well,
That's the right attitude.
Notice if you bring your bags to the supermarket, you know what you notice a lot? You end up packing your own bags.
I love packing my own bags.
I'm not very good at that. They know how to do it, so the bags do well in the car on the way home. Yeah.
What kind of bags do you use again? You bring in your bags, right?
Well, if I remember,
you're
lots of times
friendly.
I try.
What a
I
shock
forget.
that is.
I forget.
That's
Lots of
incredible.
times I've got 227 bags in the back of my car. We should do a segment on that one time. I mean, why is it that I have 227 bags, but I can't throw them out?
Yeah.
Why do we need so many bags?
Because you may need them, actually. You may need them.
I'm hoarding bags.
Do you know
for the
when I travel?
apocalypse?
By the way,
Is
this is
that it?
embarrassing to everybody who knows me, particularly in my family. I travel in tote bags. It's totally true. Instead of luggage, I just fill up with tote bags. Incidentally, the only reason we're doing this segment is because one of us cares about workers and jobs.
That's right.
The other thing is Marjorie, the other person, loves any of the CVS sound. Can we have a little bit of CVS sound to put a little Marjorie step? Go ahead.
Please wait. Help is on the way. Please wait. System processing.
The little dinger.
Little jingle.
That's even worse than the words. Would you not agree?
Yeah, it's like when you hear that awful music when you make a phone call and they have you on hold. Justin
Listen to
in
this.
Haverhill.
Yeah, read that. That is
Today
fabulous.
at Market Basket, the checkout person commented on my Fresca and said he didn't realize it was still sold, and then added it's really good with gin. You cannot get that type of tip from an automated checkout system.
You're ridiculing the guy.
I'm not ridiculing the guy. I like to talk with the checkout people.
So do I.
And they're usually a bunch of young kids that are at the Trader Joe's, and they're all very nice.
Read Bill from Bridgewater.
I think the name of the creepy robot is Jim. Oh, sorry. That's the name of the creepy co-host. My bad.
Okay, fine. It's Marty. Why did they name him Marty? Do we know why it's named Marty?
I don't know why they named him Marty.
Judy in Waltham, well, welcome to the show. Hi.
Hey, long time, first time.
Thank you a lot.
I think Marjorie is a little bit confused. I think when they say one person to two self-checkout, they mean one manned line as opposed to two self-checkouts. That's my understanding.
I think Judy is right, Marjorie.
Okay, you could be right. What they're saying is requiring one employee to supervise every two self-checkouts that are in operation. But maybe I'm wrong. You could be right. I'm not sure. It seems too many.
Okay, the other thing, Jim, as a world traveler, in Europe, most of the department stores have grocery stores in their basement.
Oh, is that true?
So I think maybe you need to go abroad again.
Well, I have to say, Judy,
out.
you make a good. I really like the Trader Joe's that caller just mentioned on Boylston is a great one, but it's weird to take an escalator underground to buy food. But Judy, I will try to adapt. Thank you for the call. I appreciate it.
We have a good point here made by a texter.
What's that?
It's just a hypothetical bill on Beacon Hill. It will go nowhere unless Ron Mariano, who runs the house up on Beacon Hill, he may decide he hates self-checkout.
Well, wouldn't that be the reason? And he's also never going to tell us, even after he votes. By the way, Ron Mariano, the speaker, said they'll take it up during the 5-month vacation. He just texted us a couple of months when the legislature goes out for
you do think, when you think of all the issues we're facing up on Beacon Hill, it is amazing that self-checkout is even among the ones that are going to be considered because there are bigger problems, you might say.
Here's an anonymous text. This is a good one. The whole checkout process is antiquated. We should just be able to go in, take what we want. All adjustments made online. That's so true.
Well, that's what was the idea. You're supposed to walk out the door and they'd be able to tell you what you had in your bag, and then they charge you and you get taken
Weren't there
out of
some
your...
Amazon stores that were supposed to buy? Whatever happened to them?
I don't know. Maybe Mondami's going to do that in New York. Free grocery stores.
You shouldn't do that. No, that's not free grocery stores. That's no employee grocery stores.
I know, but Mondami
that's not
wants
a good thing.
I'm not sure if they're going to end up if they even do it free. I think they're going to be low price because the reason
they're not free grocery stores.
In
they're
New York.
City. No, they're not.
They're city owned, and it's going to be cheaper because
that's not free.
I was just saying that, wasn't I?
I thought you said free.
Well, they're called free grocery stores. Everybody calls them free grocery stores, but they're actually grocery stores that are in city-owned buildings, so they don't have to pay the rent, and the price is going to be lower.
Huh.
Okay.
You voting for Mom, Donnie?
Well, tragically, I don't.
You don't live in New York.
I don't live in.
Any of your kids live in New York City anymore?
No, both of them. I have no one in New York City anymore. They've all left. You know why?
Yeah.
Rent is too damn high, Jim.
I know what you mean.
They had to leave New York, and then they moved to Boston and found out that the rent is too damn high here as well. Oh well.
Chris from Rossi says, the self-checkout is the same as going apple picking. You're doing someone else's job. Hate that, but I still go apple picking because I have a wife. That is
apple
really
picking.
true.
That's one of the torturous things you're expected
my
to
God.
do.
How about Christmas tree cutting?
And all the bees.
Oh.
Okay, we're going to keep talking about this for a while longer. Self-checkout. More of your calls and texts after this quick break. You're listening to BPR on GBH and NEPM and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
I'm Jared Bowen. Today on The Culture Show, historian David McCullough helped generations of readers see America's history anew. And now, a new collection, History Matters, gathers his essays, speeches, and reflections on why our stories endure. His daughter, Dory McCullough Lawson, joins us to share the lessons and legacy behind his final book. That and more on The Culture Show today at 2 on 89.7 GBH.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you. And Global View Communications, providing customized inclusion strategy recommendations to organizations that align with our culture and business priorities. Learn more at inclusionitsworthit.com. Global View Communications. Inclusion. It's worth it. And Boston Ski and Tennis, helping families stay active and outdoors this winter, offering a range of winter sport products and services with locations in Newton and Westboro or online at bostonskiandtennis.com.
Welcome back to BPR and GBH and NEPM. Marjorie Egan, Jim Brody, streaming youtube.com/GBH News. Live at the library tomorrow with Doris, Kearns, Goodwin at 11:30. The mayor, Mayor Wu, for Ask the Mayor, noon to 1. We decided to take a 30-minute break from Trump talk. We're going to get into that with Andrea Cabral in a couple of minutes. And decided to talk about a bill. The legislature is actually considering a bill to limit self-checkout, I assume to protect workers' jobs. So we're talking about that. Even if it doesn't happen, it's something we experience every day. And as I say, I think it's it's sort of a predictor of how we'll react when AI totally takes over, which is obviously a far greater threat to work and workers.
You know what? One thing we haven't mentioned. I mean, how often have you had a bagger at a supermarket who's a special needs kid, a kid with Down syndrome or something like that? Yeah, a lot of the time. So.
That's another good point.
Yeah.
Well, also, you know what the sad part? That's great. The sad part is when really old people who return to work not because they miss working, but because they really needed the money. And when you have somebody who's like 84 years old packing your crap, don't you feel, I mean, again, they need the money and they've decided they want to do.
Well, I think in that case, you help them pack the stuff. I think. Okay. 877-301-8970. Teresa.
Brought us down.
It did.
I didn't mean to say that. It was horrible. It's a sad thing.
Well, did you hear the top of the news? 1 in 8 Americans need help with buying food.
Yeah.
I mean, 1 in 8 Americans.
Yeah.
Isn't that a little depressing?
No, but the good news is with Trump's policies, we'll be eliminating that 1 in the 8, so there'll only be 7 people, and they'll have enough food.
7 and 8 people will need food help after the big, beautiful bill goes through. But right now, in the United States of America, richest country on earth, 1 in 8 people.
Do you see food stamps could expire? It could run out in November. I mean, that's going to put a lot of pressure on the Democrats there.
Teresa in Sandwich. Hi, Teresa.
Hi there. I was going to say that when I go to my Stop and Shop, I often don't have a choice. I have to go to self-checkout. There are no people there. Maybe there's one in 10 items or less, but that's not me. So same with my CVS.
Yeah, is that depressing? When I said that happened to me the other morning at Star Market, and it might have only been temporary. There's not even one person at the cashier's thing. Is that depressing when you see that? How do you feel about that?
I understand all the technology trying to take over, but I think that I miss the people too, and I miss, like you said, the elderly people that need the job and special needs people and talking to them. And I think that little robot, he reminds me of one of those balloon guys, you know?
Yeah, they're scary, those balloon guys. Yeah.
Yeah, and that robot reminds me I turn and run when I...
Oh, you mean that thing that blows in those are those air things. Is that what you're talking about?
Doesn't it remind you of that?
Yeah, actually it's shaped...
Shop and Shop?
That's brilliant. It's shaped exactly like those air things, those air sock things, like outside car dealerships or whatever. They are really creepy.
Exactly.
They come to life, by the way. I don't know if you know that. Teresa, thank you for your call. We really appreciate it. 877-301-8970 is the number.
I would say the texters are fairly divided on this issue, Jim.
No.
A lot of people love the self-checkout.
A lot of selfish people. What are they saying about? No, really. I mean, I use it more than I should, so I shouldn't criticize anybody.
Because
what are they saying?
Because it's fast. They get it out quicker.
Where's everybody rushing to go? Where's everybody going rush? Where am I rushing to go in the afternoon if I go shopping at a place with a self-checkout?
One guy
Who needs
said he went to buy a little pumpkin at your beloved Market Basket, and the lines were massive, so he ran next door to Target, got the pumpkin in 2 seconds with their self-checkout, and when he was getting into his car, he saw the person that he'd been in front of. No, would he be behind
yeah.
in the line was just then getting out of the store.
I find that dubious.
You find it dubious?
I do.
Okay, Texter, he's called you a liar.
Okay,
want you to know.
What's that again?
Jim called you a liar.
I didn't call him a liar. I said it's dubious.
Okay.
Okay, let's go to Tim in Worcester. Hi, Tim.
Jim, how you doing?
Fine.
Well, I think I'm good. Let me look. Okay, I'm good. Go ahead.
That's a Larry Glick response.
It is?
Yes. Yeah, he used to say that all the time. Anyway.
I missed him.
So,
I didn't live here, but go ahead.
Okay, so this is the Pick on Jim segment of the show.
It's okay.
Jim, you brag that you don't like to communicate with a lot of people. And, you know, to me, I think it's commendable that you want to save people's jobs. And I know you're very sincere about that, but it always seems that you have less interaction.
That's right.
Thank you.
You got him, Tim. You got him. Explain yourself, Jim.
I nailed him.
You did.
You did. No, you really did there, Tim.
Larry Glick style.
I am like under the table, a pile of goo. Let me just say, you really nailed me there, Tim. Tim, thank you as always for an excellent phone call. Now, I hope it's okay to say his name. Our friend Christopher Myers, like Myers and Chang Flower, whatever, says it's called Marty, the thing in whatever, because it's a super mart. Super mart.
Oh,
get
isn't that clever?
Yeah, hence Marty. Kind of, I don't buy that. I mean,
okay.
He would know, but I don't think it's true. 877-301-8970.
You know, a lot of people are pointing out that they resent the fact that they really don't think that they have to do more work at the self-checkout. You know, they're doing more work at the self-checkout. They don't think that they're paying higher wages to their workers because of that, and it's a big scam.
I just said that. It's anti-worker. However, the one criticism, last time we talked about this about a year or so ago.
Germaphobes.
Forget that. A criticism that I used to voice is not as true as it used to be. Wouldn't you say that every time you tried to scan more than a handful of things, you had to call a human over to help you? Because it's much more perfected now.
It's much more perfected.
That you have a problem.
Well, people have lots of problems at CVS.
They do?
Yeah.
Help is on the way, though. I don't know if you're aware of that.
Yeah, they need to change the song. Maybe they need to put in Jingle Bells or something for the Christmas season, seasonal kind of thing. A Halloween thing for next week, Christmas after that. Man, Sean, excuse me.
Wait a second. Anonymous texter, I mean, this is really probing a little bit too much into our lives. Best part about YouTube is looking at your surroundings. Jim has something called Shorts. That was Christopher Kimball's cookbook. And maybe some pickles and paper towels. Whatever. I need paper towels.
You had those there.
Sort of a where's Waldo, where's Jim game I play.
They've been there for about a year and a half, Jim.
I'm aging them until they get really, really ripe.
Okay. I just have a bunch of empty mugs.
We're sorry. There are a lot of people who want to talk about this, but Marjorie talked too much, so we don't have time to take all your calls. I'm just speaking the truth.
Okay. Coming up after this quick break, we're going to talk with former Massachusetts Secretary of Public Safety Andrea Cabral on Donald Trump's attempt. He's a billionaire, he says, but nonetheless, he needs $230 million of taxpayer money more because he's mad about the indictments against him for various alleged crimes, some of which he was already found liable for. But in any case, we're going to talk about that and the latest on the Karen Reed updates. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browder. You're listening to BPR and GBH, and NEPM is streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
If you're flying out of Singapore anytime soon, you may get hit with a new surcharge. Authorities in Singapore want to generate funds to help pay for sustainable aviation fuels.
We're talking about a few dollars per ticket, so it's a small price for cleaner flying.
But some wonder how much this will really help reduce emissions. That story and more global news next time on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Support for GBH comes from you. And the Art Complex Museum in Duxbury, featuring artwork this fall from the Boston Printmakers and the New England Mosaic Society, plus a special exhibit of miniatures from the museum's collection. More at artcomplex.org.
And Paquin Entertainment Group, presenting Moonwalkers, a 360-degree immersive experience narrated by Tom Hanks, featuring NASA footage, astronaut interviews, and more. Now open. Tickets at moonwalkersboston.com.
Welcome back to BPR, Jim Brody and Marjorie Egan. We are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News live at the library tomorrow. Doris, Kearns, Goodwin, celebrating we're all going to be celebrating the 20th anniversary of a fabulous book on Lincoln, Team of Rivals, at 11:30. And Mayor Wu will join us for an hour of Ask the Mayor from 12 to 1. Joined on Zoom by Andrea Cabral. Andrea is the former sheriff of Suffolk County, former Massachusetts Secretary of Public Safety. She joins us weekly. Hey there, Andrea. Nice to see you.
Hi, how are you?
We're good.
We're great. Andrea, it's good to talk to you again. So let's start with the president who wants to be reimbursed $230 million in taxpayer money because the Department of Justice prosecuted him for alleged crimes, some of which he was found liable for. That was a Manhattan case, actually. But in any case, he wants that money back. And
well, you shouldn't say money back. He made up the $230 million.
Okay. He made up. It's not money
back. He wants
Jim
money.
Right.
He wants $250 million.
And the question is, and Jim was saying he heard Jeffrey Toobin, who's a very good lawyer, former federal prosecutor, say that he can get it if he wants it because the people in the Justice Department aren't going to stand up against him. And there's no standing. There's no one who has standing to challenge this $230 million
scam.
Well, it is a scam. It does seem to me. What do you think?
So let's start here. Did you guys already cover how he's bringing the lawsuit under the Federal Tort Claims Act?
No.
Okay. So this is essentially the President of the United States. I think he filed the claim before he was inaugurated. Is filing a claim under the Federal Tort Claims Act claiming that the Justice Department maliciously prosecuted him. In a case in Florida that involves his theft of classified information. And the cases against him involving his collusion with Russia to rig the election in his favor the first time. He's essentially claiming that everything with the Justice Department, every case they brought against him was a malicious prosecution. And he's saying as a result of that, he wants $230 million. Well, first of all, the cases, he didn't win any of those cases. In order to show that you were the victim of a malicious prosecution, you have to have some evidence that you were maliciously prosecuted.
That's an excellent point.
He got away with all of it because first, Aileen Cannon down in Florida delayed the case until after he was elected, delayed it unreasonably, which delayed all of the other cases against him, including the one that was being handled by Judge Tanya Chutkin. And SCOTUS not only delayed a ruling in the special prosecutor's cases, Jack Smith's cases against him, when they didn't have to, they ultimately, the ruling they delayed was about him being given immunity, which they made up, does not found anywhere in the Constitution. He was granted immunity from prosecution, so once he was elected, the Justice Department had no choice but to dismiss those cases against him. He hasn't won a single case against him and was found liable in the Manhattan case, the one state case he couldn't dodge. So how he...
I have to interrupt you for a second. I just want to, because I wrote this down, because this is a little deeper than we usually go. You're actually saying to win a case for malicious prosecution, you actually have to prove that you were maliciously prosecuted. Is that what you're saying there, Andrew?
Yes, as strange as it sounds, it's intrinsic to prevailing on that case. That's the first part. But there's a lot more to unpack here. And I don't agree with Jeffrey Toobin because I believe that there is a way for the Justice Department's cases to be defended. I think it requires bringing that case before a court. I think Toobin makes the mistake of sort of saying that the decision begins and ends in the Justice Department deciding to settle. And he's right in as much as I've said a million times on this show, the fact that Trump installed lawyers who represented him personally in these cases in the Justice Department and Congress absolutely betrayed the American people by confirming these people. Todd Blanche, Emil Bove, who has now gone on to be a judge in the appeals court, been confirmed to be a judge in the appeals court. These are the lawyers who represented him in these cases. They're conflicted out in making any decision.
I agree. The conflict, I think, is as deep and obvious as any conflict you can see. But Toobin's point, I don't want to give listeners a headache, but legally, to be able to sue anybody, you need to have what the court calls standing. You have to have essentially a legitimate reason for challenging this other than the fact that you don't like it. And his position, he agreed with everything you said so far, by the way. I happen to have seen it. The place where I think you two disagree, and I hope you're right, is that somebody would be allowed by a court to be a plaintiff. Do you think there is such an entity?
I think it's at a minimum, it is a case that has to be brought before a federal judge who should interpret the special counsel statute as to who, whether it's a team of outside attorneys, preferably former DOJ officials who already have been, have enjoyed a security clearance at some point. But if not that, then perhaps retired judges. Someone has to make a determination that whether or not under the special counsel statute, a team of outside lawyers can be put together, or an outside law firm can come in to represent the American people, because the conflict here is that the people who should be making the decision on behalf of the American public as to who should defend the Justice Department, which represents the American public, are conflicted out because they only represent the president. There has got to be a mechanism to bring that case before the judiciary and have them decide it. And it absolutely must be done. These people who represented him personally cannot be allowed to now represent him in giving him money to which he is not entitled, because those cases by the DOJ were properly brought before him, but they were removed by judges who were acting on Trump's behalf and a SCOTUS that continues to act under his behalf.
We're talking to Andrea Cabral. Let's go local. I think people remember Michael Proctor was a state cop who was fired, lead investigator in the Karen Reed case. He was forced by the court to read aloud some of the texts he wrote about Reed during her 2024 murder trial. Here's Proctor. You'll hear the judge briefly, and then Proctor reading his own texts. Here they are.
She's a whack job. See you.
Objection. So don't spell it. You have to. So these are your words, Trooper Proctor?
Yes, Your Honor.
Go ahead and say them.
Yes, she's a babe. Weird Fall River accent, though. Said the Alberts beat the shit out of O'Keefe, left him for dead, and that's why her taillight was cracked. She's gross. Trooper DeChico. Oh, her.
Okay, so he was suing to get his job back, and he withdrew his appeal. And I have to say, I'm not clear why he did. Why did he withdraw his appeal?
Well, I think it's because they now have access not just to the texts that were found to be relevant and material in the Karen Reed case, but texts going back to 2013 about virtually everything. Right? I see. So the body that is making the decision about whether or not he gets his job back appears, at least but based on what his own attorney said, now has access to a lot more texts. And so they basically said that the appeal was being withdrawn based on disclosures that were made to his defense counsel's office about what appears to be an enormous volume of files on his cell phone. And I think the cell phone he was using was the cell phone that was given to him by the state police. So essentially it is owned by the state. Anything on it belongs to the state. It is a state body that is making the decision as to whether or not he loses his job. And I think he, this is my supposition, he withdrew his appeal because he may have to defend a lot more than what was brought forward in the Caribbean.
So there are a lot of criminal convictions where he may have been a lead investigator, whatever he was, or not even lead, a la the Karen Reed case, where defense lawyers may move to vacate convictions based upon his text. Is that not obvious?
Yes, it's not, and it's not just before the body that they could presumably all of that information could come before the body that's deciding on his job. It's also the prosecutors in cases, the Norfolk County case, the Brian Walsh case.
Right, yeah.
He's the one accused of killing his wife.
Yeah.
Some more notorious than others, where he was the lead prosecutor.
I see.
They have access to all of this as well. So if he continued with this, he's going to be in Superior Court in Norfolk County defending things that he said going back to 2013 on cases, maybe just generally about witnesses or victims. And he's going to have to defend all of that before the very body that is deciding whether or not he gets his job back. It really makes no sense for him to continue to do that and to eliminate at least one additional forum where he won't have to defend himself.
Mm-hmm.
So, Andrea Cabral, I want to talk to you about this Maine super PAC case, because this could be a big deal. We always complain about money in politics. It's about possibly changing campaign finance rules. Tell us about this and what its impact could be.
Okay, this is a little complicated. So, Maine voters passed a law that limits contributions to a super PAC. Everybody knows that the disastrous Citizens United case decided by SCOTUS many years ago said that people could make unlimited contributions to a super PAC as long as that PAC didn't coordinate with the campaign it was attached to, which is an absolute fallacy that doesn't happen, right? But in any event, that's the law. So Citizens United heralded this era of unlimited money by people with unlimited resources to influence decisions. Maine voters passed a law that said limit the contributions to a super PAC to $5,000 per person. No matter who you are, it's only $5,000. The PAC can spend unlimited money in favor of its campaign or its candidate, but individual donors can only give $5,000 per limit. Obviously, that is being challenged by the political right, which absolutely wants individuals with a lot of money to be able to out-influence any group of voters. That's how they've been getting legislators elected all these years and Congress people elected all these years. They're not about to give that up.
How does it get around the Supreme Court, though? I don't get how it can, get around that.
What do you mean?
Well, because the Supreme Court issued that ruling that said otherwise back years ago. I don't get how it doesn't fall. It seems illegal under what the Supreme Court has said. I'm not a lawyer, but that's how it seems to me.
Well, I think that the issue there is whether or not the interpretation is, does Citizens United limit, if at all, the amount that a person can give or the amount that the PAC can spend, or both?
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So the main law, it says PAC can spend unlimited amounts of money, but only individuals can only contribute $5,000. There are other cases. I think I get the impression from the story that there may be a couple of other cases that feed into this. I will say this: I do not expect, like the people who commented, many of the people who commented for this case, that SCOTUS will do anything other than what helps hugely moneyed interests continue to influence elections. I can't imagine that they would ever come down on the side of individual voters on this. but I think that there is at least the hope that they will see the damage that has been done and maybe at least put some limitation on Citizens United. They always, clearly precedent, they haven't followed precedent in any of the decisions that they've made recently. They haven't respected the history of the Supreme Court at all. So, this isn't, it wouldn't, they could do it. It's just that I don't think that they will.
Well, I just want to point out what apparently got Maine residents really ticked off about this. Alarmed, as the Globe story by James Pindell says, because in 2021, a Canadian power company spent $42 million using a super PAC to earn the rights. Well, they wanted to build a corridor of power lines connecting this hydroelectric power plant to the New England power grid through Maine. And we read about this in the paper when it happened. But I mean, $42 million. It's hard to compete with that kind of money. And I guess people up in Maine were furious about it.
Yeah. I mean, well, Elon Musk spent $100 million to get Trump elected using a super PAC.
Yeah.
And the notion that they don't coordinate with campaigns, like I said, is just, it's insulting to the intelligence. But this is the kind of money that is being poured into campaigns every single day by people who make the calculation that that's a small investment compared to what they'll make if the way they want a candidate to vote or a law they want passed or not passed happens. To them, it's another investment, and it completely outweighs the voice and the vote, and the power dilutes immeasurably the power of voters. That's the point of this.
Okay, let's move to the House Speaker, who is.
By the way, let me just say, I know this could change.
It would be
I
great.
agree with Andrea. It's unlikely. This would change American politics in a way that almost no reform could ever do.
Well, think about it.
Huge.
Think about it. Everything that lawmakers do badly and screw people on has to do with money they get from lobbyists, from these PACs, this massive amounts of money. Pharmaceutical drugs is a great example. That's why we're paying these astronomical prices, is because of the
Well,
campaign.
there's another thing. Andrea mentioned in passing, I just want people to understand this. By law, the ability as of the moment for these PACs to take unlimited amounts of money is predicated on them not coordinating, for example, if it's a candidate's race with a candidate. For those of us who've been involved in politics, either as a reporter, or as a candidate, the former sheriff of Suffolk County, and I've been involved a little bit in politics myself through the years, it's ridiculous. In some cases, people obey the law. I mean, I know of many cases, and you're shaking your head, where they're the same people running the PAC as they're running the campaign, and the notion that there's not total coordination is absurd.
And it allows the politician to say, well, there's nothing I can do about it because it's a super PAC. It allows them to slide through that little loophole.
That's exactly right. That's a wonderful point, by the way.
Okay, so let's move on to the Speaker of the House, who is trying every sort of machination and looks sillier and sillier to come up with excuses about why he is not seating a representative from Arizona who has been a Democrat. She has been elected, I think, how long is it? No,
almost a month ago.
Yeah, a month ago. But he won't seat her with one excuse after another. His suspicion is about because she'll be the vote that could release Epstein files. But now the Attorney General there in Arizona is suing.
As well, the Attorney General in Arizona should sue. I mean, this isn't about silliness. This is a duly elected member of Congress. Her name is Adelita Grijalva, and she should be sworn in as a duly elected member of Congress. It's not just that she would be a vote that would vote for releasing the Epstein files. It's that she's yet another Democratic seat in Congress. The context of this happening, so the Speaker of the House is essentially saying, the people of Arizona, we will forbid you from having your elected representation. Now, the people of Arizona are being taxed on a daily basis, both at the federal level. That's taxation without representation, right? He's saying that because there's a federal shutdown and the House isn't in session, he's following the law. That's a lie. They can, on a case-by-case basis, in what are considered to be emergency circumstances, allow things to happen. So the House doesn't have to be in session for someone to be sworn in. the fact that we have had presidents who've been assassinated and have been sworn in on planes, like Lyndon Johnson. It wasn't a huge inauguration with everyone in attendance. It was an emergency situation. To avoid taxation without representation, which is fundamentally antithetical to the Constitution, she should be sworn in. He's violating his oath. It isn't just silliness or trying to protect Trump. He's violating his oath by not swearing her in. And it serves a number of circumstances, while simultaneously individual state legislators at the behest of Trump at the federal level are gerrymandering districts to keep as many Democrats as possible out of Congress. This is a wholly coordinated effort by the GOP. She is one example of it. But he has no business doing this, and I'm glad that the Arizona Attorney General is swearing him, and I hope a judge takes it seriously enough to hold Johnson personally responsible, because he is making the decision to do this. And that's what I hope is part of this lawsuit, to hold him personally accountable and ultimately in contempt of court, if not liable for damages, because this is unconscionable.
We only have 20 seconds. I just want to say, if I had to rank the number one member of Congress who has contorted himself into a pretzel every day to make sure that he agrees with anything that Donald Trump says,
one of our texters,
Johnson wins the award.
Called Pinocchio, Andrea, because Pinocchio was telling lies. So I think his nose by this point would be from Washington right across maybe to Colorado.
I don't know how he lives with himself. It's incredible. Andrea, good to see you.
Thank you very much, Andrea.
Take care.
Good to see you.
We have been speaking with former Secretary of Public Safety, Andrea Cabral. We say goodbye to those of you who are listening to us on NEPM. Thank you very much for tuning in. You also at NEPM can tune into the fabulous 413 Monty and Khalees at 3 this afternoon. We're going to keep going here in Boston after the new news in 89.7 GBH. Former White House Social Secretary, Deesha Dyer, who actually worked in the East Wing of the White House, which is now being demolished. She's the keynote speaker in an event celebrating Boston's women-led businesses. She joins us right after the new news. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy. You're listening to BPR on GBH and NEPM and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
It's not over yet. More smart conversation about community issues up ahead with Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan on Boston Public Radio, right after a news update from NPR. Stay with us here on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you and the Peabody Essex Museum, presenting Salem's only collection of authentic objects from the 1692 Salem witch trials. Now on view. For tickets, you can visit PEM.org. And Silligrams, a Boston area manufacturer working with businesses to create custom silicone products for corporate gifts and branded merchandise. Learn about their monogrammed ice trays and more online at silligrams.com.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Browdy, head on Hour 2 of BPR. We'll speak with Deesha Dyer, former White House Social Secretary under President Barack Obama's administration and author of the critically acclaimed memoir, Undiplomatic, How My Attitude Created the Best Kind of Trouble. She joins alongside Elizabeth Taylor, The Women's Edge, and Colette Phillips ahead of their 25th annual celebration of the top 100 women-led businesses in Massachusetts.
I'm Marjorie Egan. Then it's Jeremy Ben-Ami of J Street. He joins us to discuss the cautious hope many feel in the days after a ceasefire took hold in Gaza. We'll talk with him about how Jewish Americans are responding to this moment. All that plus our Two More Things segment next on the second hour BPR 89.7 GBH.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. Wide-ranging illegal gambling and sports betting investigations linked to major organized crime families are resulting in charges against dozens of people, including some of the most prominent figures in the NBA. The Justice Department's announced that Portland Trail Blazers head coach and Hall of Famer Chauncey Billups was arrested in Oregon. Miami Heat guard Terry Rozier was arrested in Florida. They're both expected to appear in federal court today. As FBI Director Kash Patel describes it, the extent of wire fraud and money laundering offenses is staggering.
The fraud is mind-boggling. It's not hundreds of dollars. It's not thousands of dollars. It's not tens of thousands of dollars. It's not even millions of dollars. We're talking about tens of millions of dollars in fraud and theft and robbery across a multi-year investigation.
Former NBA player Damon Jones was also arrested. Federal authorities say the NBA has cooperated with the investigations. European Union leaders are in Brussels today to discuss Ukraine. They are heartened by President Trump's decision to sanction 2 Russian oil companies. NPR's Eleanor Beardsley reports Europe has also been sanctioning Moscow.
The Trump administration sanctioned 2 major Russian oil companies just as the EU approved its 19th round of sanctions on Russia. Manfred Weber is head of the largest party in the European Parliament. He had a message for the continent's right-wing politicians who still think greater efforts should be made to negotiate with the Russian president.
Even Trump tried it now to please and to invite Putin to come to the negotiation table. Putin has only one interest, and that is destroying our European way of life.
At the summit, EU leaders are discussing using Russia's immobilized assets in Belgium as collateral for issuing a $162 billion loan to Ukraine. Eleanor Beardsley, NPR News, Paris.
The public's now learning that the entire East Wing of the White House is coming down. NPR's Tamara Keith reports this is an expansion of the scope of President Trump's White House ballroom project.
The East Wing was built during World War II and has been modified over the years. Until recently, it housed the offices of the First Lady's staff. Explaining that it needed to be torn down, President Trump downplayed its significance.
It was never thought of as being much. It was a very small building.
Trump said it didn't make sense to save the East Wing at the expense of the massive new ballroom he has planned.
In order to do it properly, we had to take down the existing structure.
Images of excavators tearing into a wing of the White House have set off alarms for groups concerned with historic preservation. The White House says preservation work was done and calls the controversy, quote, pearl clutching. Tamara Keith, NPR News.
It's NPR.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Dropkick Murphys frontman Ken Casey has launched a campaign urging punk artists to unite against Donald Trump's presidency through a partnership with the nonprofit organization Home of the Brave, of which he's a recent board member. Casey released a series of videos calling for increased activism within the punk rock community.
Yeah, I hate to criticize other punk bands for not standing up. Like, I don't want to be that guy that's calling people out. However, there's a reason why MAGA and Trump have created the atmosphere they have, because they've bullied people into silence.
Casey says punk rock should inherently challenge governmental abuses. His collaboration with Home of the Brave, which, by the way, was founded by former Republicans, aims to highlight the negative impacts of Trump's policies on ordinary Americans. And speaking of music, happy National iPod Day. It was 24 years ago today, October 23rd, 2001, that Steve Jobs introduced the iPod to the world. It went on sale November 10th that year, and as of 2022, when the product line was discontinued, Apple had sold an estimated 450 million iPod products. The device people bought and listened to music, putting hundreds of songs in their purses as well as pocketbooks and pockets. Where is your iPod? Well, mine has been bouncing around that everything drawer for years. Bruins host Anaheim at the Garden tonight. It's 57 degrees in Boston right now. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from ARM, committed to delivering innovative, advanced computing designed to enable worldwide companies to unleash the capabilities and experiences of AI. The future of AI is built on ARM. ARM.com. This is NPR.
Welcome to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. We are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. A couple of exciting programming notes. We're going to be back at the Boston Public Library tomorrow with famed legendary historian Doris Kearns Goodwin, celebrating the anniversary of her great book about Abraham Lincoln, Team of Rivals.
20th anniversary, that's right.
Yep, she's going to be with us at the library at 11:30, and the mayor of Boston, Michelle Wu, will be at the library with us from 12 to 1 for another edition of Ask the Mayor. Hello again, Jim.
And throughout today's show and tomorrow's show, we'll be talking about a president with Team of No Rivals, which is it's another book that's going to come out someday soon. Okay. We're going to start the noon hour talking about women's leadership in Boston's business world, because tomorrow morning, the Women's Edge nonprofit will announce their official ranking of the top 100 women-led businesses in Boston at a special gala breakfast. Their keynote speaker tomorrow is Deesha Dyer, the author of the book Undiplomatic: How My Attitude Created the Best Kind of Trouble. From 2015 to 2017, she served as White House Social Secretary, obviously for the Obamas, formerly located in the East Wing, which should be a pile of rubble by 5 o'clock today. Deesha Dyer joins us via Zoom. Pleasure to meet you. Thanks so much for being here. Also joined by Elizabeth Haler, CEO of the Women's Edge, and Colette Phillips, President and CEO of Colette Phillips Communication. And speaking of legendary convener
Legendary, that's
in
right.
our community. For more info and to register to attend, you go to thewomensedge.org. Welcome to all three of you. Thanks so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Well, Elizabeth,
thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you very much for being here. We're going to get to the East Wing later. Don't worry. People are very upset about it. But let's start with you, Elizabeth. Tell people, what's the Women's Edge?
The Women's Edge is a women's leadership nonprofit. Excuse me. The Women's Edge has been around for 28 years. It's a nonprofit women's leadership organization. Up until 3 years ago, we were called the Commonwealth Institute, and we rebranded 3 years ago to the Women's Edge, which we felt better reflected who we are and what we do. So our membership has evolved from strictly C-suite all the way down to the rising generation across nonprofit, for-profit, and everything in between. So we really focus on leadership development, research, recognition, and connection.
Now, Colette, you're on the board, right?
I'm on the
you're
board,
on the board, and
yes.
I know you've been involved in the organization off and on forever. Fill in some blanks. I mentioned you're going to be ranking the top 100 women-led businesses. I know the ranking's coming out tomorrow. Flesh this out a little bit. What are we going to learn tomorrow? What's happening?
Well, one of the things you're going to learn is that the women-owned businesses or women-led businesses in Massachusetts contribute over $145 billion to the Massachusetts economy.
Wow. It's actually $165 billion. I read that. It isn't? I thought I read the press release once.
Yes, it did.
There was a mistake.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh, no.
Well, let's edit that out. Is this live? Unfortunately, it's live. God, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yes.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
You think about it, for example, Takeda, which is the largest company, they hire more people or have more people on their payroll than the state of Massachusetts.
Wow.
Is run by a woman, Julie Chen. Vertex, Reshma Kalamarami, who is a woman. So you look around.
She spoke the other night at a dinner I co-emceed for the Asian Community Fund. One of the greatest speeches I've ever heard from a human being in my life. She was brilliant.
An immigrant.
She was brilliant.
A woman of color and running, a woman-led business, Vertex. So these are women. I am proud to say that when I was in my 30s, 10 years ago.
That's right. We were all in our 30s 10 years ago.
I served on the I served on the Commonwealth Institute's board, and I feel like it's like being in the mafia. You leave, and Elizabeth pulled me right back here.
Perfect. Hey, Deesha Dyer, it's pretty obvious your schedule's pretty packed. Why'd this matter enough to you to keynote this thing?
For me, I don't see a time where it's more important to, number one, be in community. Like, we have to be together right now. I mean, I don't think it's a far as to see, how much is happening in the world. And I think the answer is community. And I think that we also are seeing so many attacks on women's rights and women in general, that we need to kind of come together. And so when, they brought it to me through my dear friend Rose, I was like, this sounds right up my alley. And personally, I'm a business owner as well. So it's not just, me going to be a keynote speaker. It's me being in conversation and community with this great group that's come together. And so that's why it's important to me.
By the way, the business is Hook and Fasten. If people want to check it out, we should say yes.
You got one, Deesha, you got one of the great titles of all time for a book, though. I love this. Undiplomatic: How My Attitude Created the Best Kind of Trouble. So what was your attitude and what was the trouble?
I mean, my attitude is always as a disruptor, not a destroyer, which is interestingly enough what I start with tomorrow for the keynote. Is how we need to be disruptors in this time. And, back in my day, I'm 47, very proud to be 47. There wasn't a movement of speak up as a woman and these shirts that say, like, please use your voice. It was, you are using your mouth too much. You're too loud. You're too boisterous. You're too disruptive. But I just kept going. And that all took me to the White House to work for President Mrs. Obama. And so my attitude did create the best kind of trouble. And so that is the kind of trouble that I encourage people to get in because that's what we need right now.
Elizabeth, are the number of women, I assume the answer is yes, but tell me how deep this is. I assume the number of women-led businesses in Massachusetts is growing every year. That's a safe assumption. Is it not, or is it?
I would say yes, no question. But for the top 100 list, it's women-led. So some of them are women-owned. But every year we'll have some attrition and then some new people. Someone retires, someone gets replaced. So this year we have 23 new companies on the list.
What's the impact of these women running businesses in a state where I think 5 of the 6 constitutional officers are women? First elected woman governor in our history. The mayor of the biggest city in Massachusetts is a woman. Does that trickle down into the business environment, or are they two separate animals?
I would say that they're certainly related. We're all part of the same community, and women are driving more and more business into the mass economy. For example, last year it was 124 billion. This year it's 141. In terms of employees that this encompasses, globally it's 477,569. Wow. And locally in Massachusetts, it's over 100,428. So we are making an impact, and it's across industry too, to what Colette was saying earlier. We've got the whole gamut across all industry, and it's very, very impressive that we've been able to continue to do this and grow. And Jim, when this started 25 years ago, the top 100, you could count the people in the room. It was a very small event. No one really knew, and now we've evolved to over 800 people for breakfast. The governor and the mayor will be there tomorrow,
and the former governor
and the
of
former
Massachusetts.
Which former governor are we talking about?
Charlie Baker.
Charlie Baker. Okay. So tell us what else is going on tomorrow, Colette, Phillips. We know that Deesha is going to be the keynote speaker, but you mentioned Charlie Baker. What else is going to happen?
Well, we're going to do the countdown, of course, and
how do you rank them? What is the count? What are the criteria for ranking?
When I was on the board, and you continue to do that, you work with Babson.
You got to talk into the mic here.
We used to work with Babson. We used to work with Babson College, and you're very specific. Elizabeth, can you just
I'd be happy to.
How you do how we do that?
At a high level, we have a tried and true algorithm. So the revenue is certainly that most heavily weighted metric, but we also, in the applications, we ask the top 100 nominees to answer a handful of open-ended questions that get ranked, along with certainly other aspects to how many people women are on your boards and senior leadership, et cetera. But all that goes into an algorithm, and because if it was if the revenue was the only metric, it would be the same person every year. So it's really important to shake that up a little bit.
And by the way, the reason we're not sharing the ranking yet is because they won't share the ranking with us.
Yeah, it's a
count. They're going to announce it tomorrow morning at the
but
breakfast.
In one of these stories I read about, and any one of you can deal with this, but the imposter issue, I've always felt, I think a lot of women, and I'm older than you guys, but I think a lot of women feel the imposter syndrome their whole career. Why is that?
Deesha talks about this.
Yeah, do you want to address that one, Deesha?
Of course. I mean, because we have systems in place that make us feel like we are less than. So the systems that are in place make us feel less than. So when we're younger, as I spoke up about, when I was younger, I was always very loud and very disruptive and very talking, asking a lot of questions. That wasn't seen as a positive. And so I automatically thought that I was faulty. As a Black woman who always spoke up, I was like, I shouldn't be speaking, and I would get in trouble. So I would think it was wrong. And so once then I grow up, the imposter syndrome grows up with me. I get into a workplace, and many of us get into a workplace as women, and we're just like, we're here to do the job. We're smart, we're capable. And then next thing you know, we're met with microaggressions that make us feel like you're a little less, or maybe you should go home and parent only, or you should do these things. So we have to play catch up. So that imposter syndrome really kind of grows in us as we grow up through college, law school, grad school, anything that we do, have businesses. And it is not until we get older, I think part of it is starting not to care. I know that I feel that way when I get older, but I think until we get older that we're like, wait a minute, this is a scam. This is a little bit of a scam, because now we go to therapy and we do all these things that fix ourselves, but there's nothing wrong with us. The system is wrong. There's nothing wrong with us.
One of the things that I think I never ever dealt with imposter syndrome, and I thank my parents for sending me to a single sex girls' school.
Oh,
and when you are
little K through 12 or in college or
K
when?
through 12.
You know that Marjorie went to Smith for a year, but she left because she couldn't get a date. Do you know that, by the way? I just want to be clear about that. Go ahead.
And I think what happens is when you go to an all-girls school, we did all the parts, like when we did plays, when we did all the parts the guys did.
Yeah.
So you grow up feeling there is nothing you can't do as a woman.
Yeah.
And I think that helped to shape me when I came to this country as a young Black woman.
What's the name of your memoir? If people want to read more about your history, what's the name of your book?
The Includers.
The Includers.
Yeah.
How diverse is this list
point.
of 100, by the way? Is it? I assume it's mostly white women, yes?
And we have a good range of Latino, Asian, and Black women on the list.
So, Elizabeth, can you? What is the qualitative? That may be the wrong word, but I'll start with that, and then you say whatever you want. What's the difference generically? I guess is a better word, because obviously it depends on the individual, between a woman CEO and a male CEO. It's not a trick question. That was a real question, sort of, I guess.
I don't know if you want my answer.
No, I really want your answer now. Go ahead.
I guess to Colette's point, I have never seen the world as men and women. I just, in my whole career, I worked with men like all the time in the public accounting and consulting world. So I have just never really gone down that route. So I can't really say men CEOs are better than women. I will say that one of the things at the Women Edge we pride ourselves on is male allyship. And we have men on our board. We really count on our male partners and our companies, and because they need us and we need them. So, it's a win-win for us all. But we have so many, also, pretty much every major business organization in the Commonwealth supports our leadership impact study that we do every year for Massachusetts. So we have a lot of supporters, a lot of ambassadors, a lot of business partners. So that's how we roll. We're very much into the connecting each other and not being just in our lane.
Okay, Deesha Dyer, whose book is Undiplomatic: How My Attitude Created the Best Kind of Trouble. I was so excited when I found out that you worked in the East Wing when you were working for the Obamas, and I have been surprised at the reaction to this demolishing of the East Wing. It's sad, I think, to a lot of people, but you were there. So tell us about the East Wing of the White House.
And what was your reaction to the last couple of days?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. I mean, I work in the hunger space, and so we have a little bit of a bigger problems happening right now with SNAP, and getting people food. So I really wasn't dialed into the East Wing demolition until I saw a photo yesterday. And I think like a lot of people, I was like, is that AI? Like, is that for real? And come to find out, it is. And I think that it's sad. I think it's disgusting, and I think it's a metaphor for all that we're going through right now, because it wasn't just a building; it was a place where we, as the Obama administration, I cannot speak for others, really welcomed people into the White House. We welcomed people, their culture. We didn't care about classism. If you were poor, if you were rich, if you had been in jail before, if you were a sports athlete, you were in the same line as somebody who wasn't a sports athlete, and kids coming through. So it's really sad that, that this space is now gone. But I think that it is very much a representation of what all is going on right now. It's a shock jock. It's for value, and none of the legal proceedings were followed. And so, I just hope that the people that weren't paying attention are now paying attention, and they get involved in their community. Why again, tomorrow is so important, because we need to be together and support each other. But the East Wing was lovely. I mean, we had a great time. We partied. We had, we brought kids through. We had a lot of fun. But now it's no more. And it also says a lot about what people think the First Lady really does. And apparently this administration, it's nothing.
By the way, we didn't define. Social Secretary is responsible essentially for everything that the President and the First Lady do, right? Everything.
Everything in the White House that the President and First Lady do, the Social Secretary is
responsible. We can barely get to work every day, Deesha. And the notion that
we need a Social Secretary.
Can we stay on that one?
I need my own. Yes, I needed my own.
Deesha, Dyer, since you mentioned a minute ago, you mentioned we talk a lot about the SNAP and food issues and food insecurity. Mm-hmm. If you're a Democrat who is standing strong, which is not how they've always been on shutdown issues, in November, it's likelihood that in part because of the shutdown, SNAP and other benefits are going to run out in a lot of jurisdictions. What do you say to a legislator who's trying to stand strong on the Medicaid and Obamacare premium issues, while at the same time, by standing strong, they're helping to put at risk critical nutrition for low and moderate income people? How do you split that baby?
I mean, we split the baby by realizing that we operate in a system that doesn't really operate in checks and balances anymore. And so what I say to them is that you need to get back to your jurisdiction and your community, see actually what is going on, because what's going on in Washington is not the same thing going on in my hometown of North Philadelphia, right? There are people
You're a Philadelphia
starving.
kid?
I am.
I am. Oh my God!
Born and raised Philadelphia.
Wow.
Yes.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Can't you tell by the disruption? But yeah.
But there's no accent. Where's the accent, by the way? What happened to the accent?
Yeah, I know. Well, Washington.
Okay. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No worries. And so what I say is go back in your jurisdiction, because I think that you while you are doing the right thing, there are people also currently starving. So what can we do on the ground to lift up the organizations that are helping the people right now? Because they're also dealing with federal funding cuts. So our food banks that have to help the people are now losing money and staff, but the need is rising. And so that's what I say to them is don't lose connection with the actual people, because we know some politicians are doing this for their own vanity and ego, right? They'll come out with a book next week about how they held the floor for whatever hours, right? And you're like, really? Like, people are so hungry, So I hope your book does well. And so I say, don't lose touch with the people. Go back home.
Were the Obama? We should know this. Were the Obamas? Was the White House as good on women leadership and positions of importance as we've been talking about for the last 15 minutes? Did they walk the walk as well as talking it?
We walked the walk. We walked the walk within our line that we could walk the walk. We also had a Congress to work with, and so we did the best that we could at the time. Could we have probably done better? Oh, of course. I'm sure we could have.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to ask you too, because lots of people that may be listening, they have children and they're thinking about their careers and stuff like that. Do you study etiquette books to become the social secretary of the White House, or is there a White House etiquette book? I mean, what are the qualifications for social secretary? You know where the forks go, and the polite way to talk. What is the deal?
That's a great question. No, I studied the Philadelphia etiquette, which is a which I think at the time was on brand for this White House, because we didn't want to do things like everybody else did all of the time. So I was very lucky that I came from a line of social secretaries who knew where the fork was. So I was like, hey, Clinton secretary, can you help me with where this actually goes? You know?
Okay.
So you do not have to know all that, but you do have to know how to welcome people, how to throw an event that's inclusive, how to include people and bring folks in.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what I knew and what I did in Philadelphia. So I just brought it to a bigger stage. So
Great.
Was there a moment, I was reading all this late last night, speaking of doing everything for the Obamas, weren't you involved in the infamous moment when the Trumps come and Melania Trump hands the Tiffany box gift? Do you mind quickly telling that story? Because I heard it long before we were lucky enough to have you. Tell us the story, if you would.
Yes, it was. I actually was the one who got the box from the Obamas when it came in. So every time you do an event, everything's down to the minute. And I talked to the Trump advance team. I was one of the last staffers left in the White House, and I was in charge of the change of power. And I said, is there a gift that's arriving that we can prepare for the gift? Because Mrs. Obama gave Mrs. Bush a gift. It's not odd for it to happen. They said no. And so I was like, great, this is going to be easy. We're in the car, shake hands, take a photo, keep it moving. And I'm in the window, and while the Obamas are waiting for the Trumps to get out, I see Mrs. Trump get out with a box. And I'm like, is that her purse? Like, what is that? And it's a Tiffany's box at that. We don't do branding. There's no a Tiffany's box. So I panicked because I was like, oh my gosh, I told them there was no. So my first thought, and this person who has imposter syndrome, I'm not doing my job well. Oh my gosh, I thought I didn't brief them well enough. And so Mrs. Obama, you can see on the video, takes the box, looks around like, I don't know what to do with this. President Obama sees that. He takes the box from her. And then I have the good sense, because I have the good sense, to walk halfway and take the box from him without the press seeing me. So that is actually what happened. I don't know what's in people always say, what was in the box? I'm like, it was a frame, but I didn't open it because it wasn't for me. So I put it on the table and kept it moving.
Okay, one last thing before Elizabeth makes the final pitch for the gala tomorrow. President Obama was kind enough to call into our show a bunch of years ago when it was the last day of Governor Patrick spent once a month in our studio for Ask the Governor. And it's a surprise for Governor Patrick, who worked it out over months, that President Obama was kind enough to call his friend. And it was a beautiful conversation. After he was done talking to Governor Patrick, I asked him, Obama, that is, if he had ever paid his parking tickets in Somerville from when he was a Harvard Law School and he evaded the question. Do you know if he ever paid the damn parking tickets, Deesha, or no?
I have no idea. What they did outside the White House was not my jurisdiction.
Okay,
so
fair enough.
I have no idea.
Elizabeth, you want to make one more pitch for tomorrow's breakfast?
Only to say that we are absolutely thrilled. We have a record turnout. We're sold out. We have just an extraordinary group of women leaders across the Commonwealth. And particularly now, as Deesha said, this is the time when we can't give up. We have to keep pressing ahead and making sure that we, all of us older people, are paving the way for all the rising leaders coming up. It doesn't matter where you're from and what industry you're in, for all women, we have to coalesce and cooperate and really support and lift up each other and make sure that we don't lose any more ground than currently we are. So we just want to keep going. Like, our mission hasn't changed. Given the socioeconomic climate, our mission is the same: inclusive, equitable leadership for all. And we happen to focus on women.
Fabulous.
So,
congratulations to all of you.
Yeah, thank you very much for being with us, and congratulations to everybody for being here. I really appreciate it. Okay, we have been speaking with former White House Social Secretary Deesha Dyer, who used to work in the East Wing, which is quickly being demolished. Her book, again, is Undiplomatic: How My Attitude Created the Best Kind of Trouble. We're also talking with the CEO of the Women's Edge, and Colette Phillips. Give me the name of your book again, Colette Phillips.
The Includers.
The
Seven
Includers.
Traits of Culturally Savvy Anti-Racist Leaders.
Okay. Thank you very much to all three of you. The event is sold out, but if you want to get more information about the Women's Edge, just go to thewomensedge.org. After this quick break, Jay Street's Jeremy Ben-Ami joins us in studio. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browder. You're listening to BPR 89.7 GBH, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
growing network of an effort they hope can help bridge cultural divides.
Serving the entire United States, not just the big cities, is really important.
Bringing students together from these dramatically different backgrounds, giving them a chance to talk to each other.
I'm Kirk Carapezza. You can find the rest of that story online at gbhnews.org.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you and the Umbrella Arts Center, presenting the electric musical Tick, Tick, Boom by Jonathan Larson. Before there was rent, there was a composer with a dream. Playing October 10th through November 23rd. Details at theumbrellarts.org. And Revision Energy, a solar company and a Mitsubishi Electric heating and air conditioning contractor, committed to helping customers lower their environmental impact. Offering all-electric heat pump systems from Mitsubishi Electric. RevisionEnergy.com.
Welcome back to BPR. I'm Jim Browdy. She is Marjorie Egan. We're streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We're live at the library tomorrow. 11:30, Doris Kearns Goodwin will join us, and she's joining us to celebrate the 20th anniversary of her incredible book about Lincoln, Team of Rivals. And Mayor Wu will join us from noon to 1 for Ask the Mayor, taking our questions and yours. Quote, I feel like I can finally exhale. It's the first line of a piece written by our next guest on the website J Street, a nonprofit that promotes a pro-Israel, pro-peace agenda. Quote, I'm on text chains filled with joy as the images of 20 hostages whose stories we've come to know so personally, all of whom are now home at last. The emotion is raw and overwhelming. In Gaza, for the first time in far, far too long, families are sleeping without the sound of bombs and drones overhead, writes Jeremy Ben-Ami, the day after the tenuous but so far still holding ceasefire began in Gaza last week. We're joined in Studio 3 by Jeremy Ben-Ami. He's a lawyer and activist who is the founder and president of J Street, introduced to us by our friend, former United States Ambassador to Spain and Andorra, Alan Solomon. Jeremy, it's great to have you here. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks so much. Great to be here.
Yes,
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. And I said when you came in the door, I was so moved by a lot of what you wrote.
So
it was really beautifully written. And anyway, elaborate on what Jim said. I know you wrote about this too, but tell us a little bit more about how you felt with the ceasefire coming to fruition.
Yeah, I know it's been 2 exceedingly long and painful years. Many of us in J Street knew the communities around the Gaza Strip very well. We'd visited over the decades, and people who died on October 7th were friends, people who had fought alongside us for peace and for better lives, not only for their neighbors in Israel, but for their neighbors across the way in Gaza. These were really wonderful human beings on these great communities, and we knew the families whose kids had been abducted, and you'd visit their communities, and the hearts had just been wrenched out of everyone. And so
You went to that kibbutz.
Yeah, numerous of those kibbutzes.
Yeah.
Kfar Aza, Nir Oz, it's just Be'eri. And so there was a lot of pain over these 2 years. And, you listen to parents talking about 21-year-olds being held for the last 2 years. I have a 21-year-old. I have a 22-year-old, too. And the idea that your kid is being held in a tunnel for 2 years, and he didn't stop fighting. The father, all of them, they didn't stop fighting the entire time for their kids the way we all would have. And so knowing that brought to fruition was deeply moving. And at the same time, the horror of what's been happening in Gaza, right? And to think about the families there losing 50, 60, 70 relatives. This has just been 2 years of horror and pain.
We interviewed the husband and cousin of Yarden Raman Gat actually a couple of times, and she was held in captivity, I think, for 57 days. Heard her story, and obviously her mother was killed. It becomes so real when you talk to someone. The impact is one of the things I was impressed by. You worked for Clinton, so
Yes.
You have a Democratic history. You didn't hesitate to praise Trump for his role in making this happen. Was that hard for you?
Well, look, it's not hard for me to hold two thoughts at once. I think, unfortunately, for a lot of human beings, it's proving to be very difficult. On the one hand, I think that this president, this administration are doing some extraordinary damage to this country and the fundamentals of our democracy. And I'm going to do everything I can to try to elect a different president, and that's, one thing. And on the other hand, I think that this particular deal and the potential that it could actually turn into something longer term, he and his team are well positioned And I'm holding the two thoughts at the same time. I think what he's doing on this is good, and I think what he's doing to the country is horrific. And
why couldn't any of his predecessors have done what he was able to do, including some Democrats?
Well, I think one of the questions is, are you willing to exercise pressure on the sitting government of Israel? Are you willing to state that the United States should have some daylight between what the U.S. is doing and thinking and what Israel is doing and thinking? And unfortunately, it's been a tenet of American policy for too long that there can't be any daylight. Barack Obama tried to break that, but I think most presidents have felt that the way to get where we're going is to hug Israel closely and agree with them at every turn and provide them with whatever they say they need. And I think that it is important to exercise pressure and to use your leverage where you can. And I think the president did that.
Don't you find it painfully ironic, though, that the president most admired by Netanyahu was the one willing to put the screws to him to a degree, as opposed to Joe Biden most recently, who just kept talking a good game and supplying weapons that were doing some pretty horrible things in Gaza?
Well, the source of the leverage, I mean, this president understood the source of his leverage, which is that Israelis have a higher regard for Trump than they do for Netanyahu. And that was his leverage, right? If Trump had turned to the Israeli people and said, your prime minister is not doing what he needs to be doing, Bibi knew it was game over. So I think it was, that he understood that what his leverage was, and he understood how to use it, and his team. I mean, I will say I've watched this interview with Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner on 60 Minutes.
Yes.
Watched the full interview, in the outtakes for an hour, and they really outlined step by step by step what it takes to make this kind of a deal, and I think they really understood it.
This is Jeremy Ben-Ami, who's the founder and president of J Street.
So, Jeremy, you mentioned the difficulty of holding two things at once, and we talked a lot about this during the 2 years since the terrorist attack in Israel. It seemed like most of us couldn't. There was the most notorious case was probably Ramesa Osturk, the Tufts student, being taken off the street because she'd co-written an op-ed expressing her sympathy for the Palestinians. And there were a lot of violent protests, but there were a lot of nonviolent protests where people got in a lot of big trouble. Why do you think that was so hard for people to do, to say horrible October 7th, but horrible? And people eventually got there, but not for a long time.
I don't know why it is so difficult. I think that the human brain, I don't study the functioning of the human brain, but I do think that we operate in sort of a bifurcated way. Things have to be black or white, yes or no, good or bad. It's just easier for us to process that. And, so many of these types of conflicts and situations are so complex, and you have to hold multiple truths at once. Somebody has a right to say something, and I have the right to disagree with them. The fact that I disagree with them doesn't mean I should shut them down, right? It doesn't mean that I should get them kicked out of the country. It doesn't mean they should be sitting in a jail for what they have said. I can argue with them. That's the principle of the First Amendment. I don't think it's that hard to understand, but it is hard, it seems, for some parts of our communities and society to hold those two thoughts.
Despite the glee or joy you felt, like I assume and I hope most people felt, when the hostages were coming home and obviously the ceasefire was going, how much hope do you hold that this gets to the next step and they get to, I was going to say get to the promised land, but
right.
How much hope do you have, and if you have any, why?
Well, I definitely have some hope. And hope is a word I don't, if you do read what I write, I often talk about the fact that I don't think hope is something that we can give people. You have to create it. And what it's going to take, this 20-point plan that the president laid out and everybody signed on to, that leads ultimately to the end of this conflict, we're at stage 2 or 3 out of 20. Right, and to make it to step 4 and 5 and 6 is going to be very hard work. And doing the hard work will bring the hope. It's the work that brings the hope, not the hope that brings about peace. And so,
but neither Netanyahu nor Hamas wants that work to be done. And if they're the major players, unless Netanyahu is replaced next year, and I'd like to get your thoughts as to whether he will be, or if all of a sudden the miracle happens with Hamas, how does that ever work?
Right. So take the lens back. And recognize that the overwhelming majority of Israelis, the overwhelming majority of Palestinians, the 22 states of the Arab world, the entire Muslim world, the states of Europe, the United Nations, the majority of American Jews, the majority of Americans, the whole rest of the world wants this to work. right? I mean, there is a very large constituency for actually ending this conflict. Now, there are obstacles and there are players who have their own interests, and there are going to be folks who are trying to undermine this. And that's certainly the extremes in Israel, represented by this current government, and the extremes in Palestinian society, represented by Hamas. But they don't speak for the majority of the Israeli population or the Palestinian population, and the Arab states all around Israel really, really want this to end. And they are invested. They're willing to invest. If you have a government of Israel, and we're going to get to the elections, that's really important. If we have a government of Israel that is willing to commit that we're on the pathway to a Palestinian state.
You know, before we look forward again, let's look backward and give people a sense who may not know why we wound up with occupations over the years and West Bank settlements, and why there was this growing difficulty living as a Palestinian, and the Israelis' legitimate fear in some cases of some sort of bad thing happening. Tell people about that.
So yeah, in 60 seconds, cover a century of history of this conflict.
You got more than that. You got more than that.
All right. Well, I mean, it's a 100+ year conflict between two legitimate national peoples, right? The Jewish people and the Palestinian people both have a very deep connection to this same land between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean Sea. They have been fighting for over 100 years over who is going to get to be the state, who gets to control this land, right? They both have legitimate claims. They've been fighting for a long time. There are now 15 million people in this land, and half of them are Jewish and half of them are not. And the only way that we're ever going to stop the fighting and stop the killing is if they figure out a way to share it. And the best way to share it is to draw a border and say there's a state that is the national home of the Jewish people on this side of the border, and there's the state that is the national home of the Palestinian people on the other side. But right now, Israel is the sole sovereign power between the river and the sea, and it is giving democratic rights only to the Jewish people in that land and not to the Palestinian people living under their control over the Green Line in the occupied territory. And that's the root of the conflict for the last 56, 57 years since 1967.
That was 74 seconds. That was excellent. Now, Jeremy Ben-Ami, when Alan Solomon was here last, your colleague who happens to be joining us, he mentioned this 23-state solution, which I know you've written about. Yeah. That was new to me, I have to admit. Explain what it is for the uninitiated.
Sure. Well, for a long time, we've talked about the need for Israelis and Palestinians to figure out the conflict. These two peoples, and if we just got them to sit at a table and talk to each other, maybe mediated by the Americans, we'll figure it all out. That's been the two-state solution model for all these years, and that hasn't worked. And actually, the problem is bigger than just Israelis and Palestinians. The problem really is between Israel and the whole Arab world, right? The Arab world had 5 wars with Israel over the course of Israel's existence. It's the Arab world that's going to have to, and the Muslim world that will have to really make the compromises around Jerusalem. Is Jerusalem sovereign Israeli territory, or are we going to find a way to share it? Maybe it's an international city, but Palestinians can't make that compromise themselves. You need the Arab world. If there's going to be money brought in to redevelop Palestine and Gaza and West Bank, it's going to come from the Arab world. So we need something bigger than 2 states. It's actually 22 states of the Arab League making peace with Israel. And one of those states is Palestine. So it's a piece of the puzzle, and Israel gets to normalize relations with the whole neighborhood, and Palestinians get their freedom and their self-determination in a state.
How worried, speaking of the 22 states, let's expand to all other states. How concerned are you about the damage that Netanyahu has done to the image, the respect for Israel around let's at least say, the democratic world?
Oh, I'm exceedingly worried. I mean, I just cannot get over the state of Israel, which was born in 1948 with international recognition and legitimacy out of a tremendous disaster of World War II, and has had goodwill from the world, goodwill across the board, bipartisan support in this country, and this government of Israel, led by Bibi Netanyahu, unwilling to compromise, unwilling to provide a pathway for Palestinians to their freedom and their rights, has squandered, by doing what has been done over the last 2 years and beyond, has squandered this goodwill around the world. And we're on the road towards Israel becoming a pariah state that not only isn't accepted by other countries around the world, but a very large segment of American Jewry won't be able to relate to, because what it's doing is so out of sync with our own values and what it means to us to be Jewish.
Well, it seems so, I mean, full of baloney, basically, for lack of a more elegant word, when, there has been some anti-Semitism created by this whole thing, and yet we have the president constantly talking about banning research grants at Harvard and all these other things based on anti-Semitism on campuses, which is real and has happened. But it seems odd, he's got this ceasefire, and that's great, but this has created anti-Semitism.
Well, we certainly are seeing surging anti-Semitism on all sides of the political spectrum. What Israel has done over the last couple of years in Gaza and its longer-term treatment of Palestinians is adding fuel to that fire. It's not the sole cause of anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism is an ancient hatred that goes way back, and it'll be with us long after Donald Trump and this state of Israel are, in the rearview mirror. Its policies are in the rearview mirror. But it is really important that we recognize that our pain as a Jewish community should not be utilized by a political movement to implement their agenda, which is to undercut higher education, to undercut immigration, to undercut the First Amendment and the freedom of speech and the rule of law, and all in the name of fighting anti-Semitism. Well, that itself is going to cause more anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
And so we should understand that as a Jewish community, and we need to stand up and say, no, not in our name. You cannot undermine what makes this country great in the name of the fight against anti-Semitism.
I just want to provide some data to the comment you made a minute ago about the changing perception. There was a Washington Post poll that I know you're familiar with. I'm not sure all the audience is. I'll read you the first paragraph. It's October 6th. Many American Jews sharply disapprove of Israel's conduct of the war in Gaza, with 61% saying Israel has committed war crimes and 4 in 10 saying the country is guilty of genocide against the Palestinians, according to Washington Post poll. You had rejected the genocide claim, and you flipped for, I don't mean that it sounds like a cavalier term, you changed your position. What occurred to you? What happened that caused you to change?
Well, I think what's important here is not the label one applies to what is happening. It is calling it out as morally wrong. It may be described by some people as genocide. It may be described by others as war crimes. There are other words one can use. Let's not debate the terms, and let's not spend all our energy on that and get worked up on that. There's a simple matter of right and wrong. And what the state and the army of Israel did to Gaza in the name of a legitimate cause, defending the state of Israel, finding the people who did the crimes on October 7th is a legitimate cause. But what happened after that went way too far. And it was so morally wrong. And that's what I say we should be discussing. And how do you fix it? How do we ensure this never happens again? I'd rather spend my time focusing on how do we implement the 20-point plan? How do we get from here to full comprehensive peace in the region, rather than debating does this or does this not meet the legal standard of genocide? So I'm not going to go out there anymore and defend that this isn't genocide. That's what my piece said. I'm not going to get into that argument. I'm not going to debate it. 5, 10, 15 years down the road, the international court will make a legal decision, and we'll hear what they have to say.
Could you explain? I realize we should have done this earlier. I'm betting a lot of listeners have heard of AIPAC.
Yes.
They've heard of J Street.
Yes.
And they probably have no idea what's one, what's the other. Could you explain what the difference between the two primary groups are? What's the difference?
Well, I can certainly tell you what J Street is. We are.
Well, you can certainly tell us what AIPAC is too, I'm sure. But so go right ahead.
What we are is we are a representation of the part of the American Jewish community that cares very deeply about Israel. So we identify as pro-Israel because we believe in the state and the people of Israel and want there to be a national home of the Jewish people. And at the same time, we recognize that the Palestinian people have the same rights that the Jewish people do, and there needs to be a state for the Palestinian people too. So we're going to be a lobby and an advocate in Washington and in American politics and in our own community for a pro-Israel but pro-peace position. And now we've added pro-democracy to our tagline over the last few years, because I will say that one thing AIPAC does in support of its pro-Israel agenda is it will endorse anyone. It will support candidates who voted to undermine the 2020 election. And we said, we will not go there. Other things matter as well. And so we are not only pro-Israel and pro-peace, we are pro-democracy. And a group like AIPAC and others in the American Jewish community are simply supporting Israel, right or wrong. And they won't stand up and they won't say, we're pro-Israel, but we don't like what the government of Israel is doing.
So what do you make of the fact that Seth Moulton was with us, I think, on Monday, who's a congressperson who obviously is running in a primary against Ed Markey. He said he's going to return whatever money he's gotten from AIPAC, which is significant, by the way. It's not short money. We read an incredible quote from Charlemagne the God, who referred to Hakeem Jeffries as AIPAC Shakur. As in Tupac, for you older listeners who are maybe not familiar with that. What statement do you think they're making? And I should say, and Jeffries for the first time soliciting support from you. That was the you mean J Street. What does that mean to you? What's the significance of those behaviors?
Well, I think what we are seeing is the recognition that J Street's approach to being pro-Israel, to representing the Jewish community in American politics on these issues is the mainstream of the American Jewish community. There's a very vocal minority of folks who are gung-ho Israel right or wrong, and they are going to throw their weight around and their power around on behalf of making sure nobody criticizes Israel. And then there's a small group, vocal as well, who's anti-Zionist and doesn't believe there needs to be a Jewish state. And those are, views within the Jewish community at the edges. But J Street's views are now the mainstream view in the American Jewish community. We support Israel. We want peace. We want Palestinians to have their rights. We don't agree with what Netanyahu's doing. We support democracy. We want a vibrant and open debate. We're not going to call everybody we disagree with an anti-Semite. And we want to really see our values, a belief in peace, a belief in justice, equality. We want to see that as the centerpiece of our policies when it comes to Israel, but also here in the United States.
You're jstreet.org, by the way. Or,
jstreet.org.
We should have said that earlier.
I'm curious what you think of Zoran Mandami. He's would be the first Muslim mayor of New York City if he's elected. Democratic socialist, very progressive in his outlook. But he said some controversial things, about globalizing the Intifada, not denying that, and not saying that's a terrible thing to say, et cetera. What do you think of him?
Well, I'm not going to say I agree with everything that he's ever said. Certainly, J Street doesn't get involved in local races. He is very exciting to a portion of J Street's community.
Yeah.
There's a portion of J Street's community that's very worried about what this all means. I think it's very reflective of the Jewish community not quite knowing what to make of that. But the thing that bothers me is to see institutions of the Jewish community and leaders calling Mamdani a security threat to the Jewish people. That is way beyond the line. You can disagree with what he says. I would like to see him condemn, globalize the Intifada, right? I'd like to see that very, very clearly. I'd like to see him acknowledge that Israel is not just a state, but it's the state of the Jewish people, right? It's the national. I want him to also say there should be a Palestine. There should be a Palestine. It's the state of the Palestinian people. So I'd like him to have different positions, but that's politics, right? I disagree with him, but when it crosses the line and people say somehow he's a danger to Jews or that he's anti-Semitic in his nature, I think that is completely wrong. I don't know the guy, but everybody who I know who is Jewish, who has worked with him, says he is not anti-Semitic, but they do disagree with some of the things that he has to say, and they wish he would say some things differently.
Okay, you say you don't know the guy. Let's talk about a guy you do know.
Yes.
When Jeremy was walking into the studio, he mentioned that he went to high school with our former boss, John Abbott. So can you tell us what little Johnny Abbott was like? We only know John as an adult. He's our former boss.
Wait, he's an adult? I hadn't noticed that.
He's chronologically, he's an adult. So what was little Johnny Abbott like there, Jeremy, when you were little Jeremy, I guess, too? Yes.
Right. Well, the great thing is, you're in radio, you've got to convey your personality through your voice, right?
Yeah.
That is absolutely key. And John is one of the biggest personalities of anybody that I know, right? And already at the age of 15, 16, 17, he just filled a room, right? And he was full of life and full of energy and full of humor and the life of the party. And, just...
So what are you saying? Is insufferable? What are you saying?
Close to insufferable, but a close friend for 50 years.
Jim, he gave us a job here. What are
Where'd
you talking
you guys
about?
go to high school?
It was a small school on the Upper West Side of Manhattan called Collegiate.
That's great. And you've stayed friends? And
we stayed friends. Yeah, we're still on a text chain. And
he's gone to California. He's abandoned us.
Yeah.
But I guess he's having a great time.
Why are you in town, by the way?
Parents' weekend at my kids' university.
Really true?
Yes.
Oh, that's fabulous.
All right, that's tough. Not to call out my kids.
By the way, the
Tufts.
reason there's cheering in the studio is Alan Salmon's here, who may have some connection to Tufts.
Maybe.
And our head producer, our executive producer, is a Tufts man. Yeah.
So go Jumbos.
Yeah, that's right.
That is why I'm here. And then I make the J Street staff come up with 2 days of meetings for me to fill my schedule while I'm here.
We hope you'll stay in touch. We really would like to keep talking to you, actually. This matters a lot to us, and we hope you give us time in the future.
Absolutely. Really enjoyed it. Thank you. Appreciate it
much.
much. Thanks so
for
much
being
for your
here.
time.
We've been speaking with Jeremy Ben-Ami, the president and founder of J Street. And for more information about J Street, go to J, just the letter J, jstreet.org. Thank you very much, both of you, or all three of you, I should say, for coming in. Coming after this quick break.
Head of J Street New England is here, too, if you're wondering who these other people are.
That's right.
Whoever they
J
are.
Street New England. Okay. Thank you very much. I don't have this on the script. What do I know? I know
it's
nothing.
not on the script.
I know nothing.
It doesn't exist.
Okay.
Exactly.
After this quick break, just enough time for, I think it might be just one more
It
thing.
might be. We'll see.
I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browder. You listen to BPR on 89.7 GBH, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
The Trump administration's cancellation of billions of dollars intended to help local governments has left local hospitals in the middle of construction vulnerable to natural disaster threats.
Unfortunately, FEMA, even prior to the shutdown, had kind of gone silent on us. And now, with the shutdown, very silent.
Building without FEMA grants on All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Support for our programs comes from you and the DeMoore McKim School of Business at Northeastern University, where MBA and master's degree students can build vital business skills through experience. Learn more at northeastern.edu/business. And Dover Rug and Home, rugs and carpeting for today's lifestyle with in-home rug trial and design consultation. Dover Rug in Natick, Boston, Burlington, and online at doverrug.com. Dover Rug. Rugs and the people who know them.
Welcome back to BPR. Marjorie Egan and Jim Browder, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Live at the library tomorrow, Doris, Kearns, Goodwin, and the mayor. It's time for two more things, but actually, it's only going to be one more thing. Take it away,
and
Marjorie.
I'm stealing mine because I want to give a shout out to two great legendary institutions around here. One is the Dorchester Reporter. It's been around for years.
Yeah.
A neighborhood newspaper doing great reporting. The Foy family has run that for years and years and years. And the other is Jack Thomas, who did a lot of reporting himself for the Dorchester Reporter, but was most famous for writing for the Boston Globe. It's going to be this big luncheon tomorrow, the Boston Irish Honors Luncheon. One of the co-chairs, by the way, is James O'Connell, who has worked for Boston Healthcare for the Homeless for years and years and years. So anyway,
he was on our show like 2 months ago.
Yeah, he was on our
show.
But I want to mention Jack Thomas because he was a great writer for the Globe. He went for a week and spent a week in Deer Island House Correction when he was a young reporter to talk about prisoners there. He spent a week dealing with homeless people. He went and lived on the streets, let his hair grow long, worked on the streets. He also did some great political stuff. Margaret Chase Smith, the one that stood up to Joseph McCarthy during the McCarthy era, and fun stuff like Julia Child and Lydia Shire and
Mitt Romney.
Mitt Romney was
one of the greatest pieces ever.
Mitt Romney, wasn't that when she mixed up Roxbury and West Roxbury?
She did.
Said they had to sell stock to have their kitchen dinner. People have over for dinner or something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, Jack Thomas is being honored there. If you want to get a copy, the book, I forgot to get. There's a book with all his columns, which you can get for free. You have to go to Jerry, Geri, at denterline.com, who's his widow, and the books are for free if you want to get them.
Jack Thomas is one of the greatest writers ever.
So congratulations to the Dorchester Reporter and wishing a glorious Irishman's heaven to the great Jack Thomas. Listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH. We'll be right back after the 1 o'clock hour. What are we doing after
John
1 o'clock
Gruber.
hour? Oh, John Gruber is going to be with us to talk about whether protests matter or not. He's Jim Browder. I'm Marjorie Egan. This is BPR on GBH. We'll be right back.
Our recent membership drive was a success. Your support is so appreciated. Today's news is on the air because you helped us get it there, and we know we all need to stay informed more than ever. So thank you from all of us at GBH.
Support for GBH comes from you and the Boston Globe, presenting the Globe Docs Film Festival, premiering new documentary films, bringing together filmmakers, journalists, and guests from around the world. In person and online, October 22nd through 26th. GlobeDocs2025.splashthat.com. And Lexus Broadway in Boston, presenting Hamilton. Written by Lin-Manuel Miranda, Hamilton is the story of America then, told by America now. Hamilton is in Boston through November 2nd. More at LexusBroadwayInBoston.com.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston.
online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Browdy, head on Hour 3 of BPR. MIT economist John Gruber joins for a microeconomics lesson on the power of protest, the importance of weather, and the so-called 3.5% rule that it takes just 3.5% of the population to get together to force major policy changes. And more importantly, we'll interrogate John about his early morning guest DJ set on WMBR, where he played, as he says, all killer, no filler.
I'm Marjorie Egan. Then it's Am I the A-Hole Day? We're talking home renovation, subsidized housing edition. Today's issue, an elderly man living rent-free in subsidized housing decides to do some renovations on the space, knocking part of it down without permission of his landlord. Is he the jerk for making updates to the house or not? We'll open the lines to get your thoughts next in the third hour BPR 89.7 GBH.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. President Trump's pardoned Binance founder Changpeng Zhao. The crypto billionaire had pleaded guilty to failing to establish enough guardrails in the world's largest crypto exchange to block money from flowing to terrorists and other criminal groups. After pleading guilty in 2023, he was sentenced to 4 months in prison. The Trump White House today says the prosecution was part of a Biden administration war. Raise ethics concerns about such pardons. The NBA Portland Trail Blazers head coach Chauncey Billups and Miami Heat player Terry Rozier are among dozens of people arrested by federal agents in connection with an FBI investigation into 2 illegal gambling schemes. One involved bets on NBA games and the other involved underground poker games. NPR's Becky Sullivan reports.
Federal officials, including FBI Director Kash Patel, say that NBA insiders, such as Rozier, passed along confidential info to organized crime operations to place illegal bets on games.
This is the insider trading saga for the NBA. That's what this is.
Rozier was previously investigated by the NBA back in 2023 after the league was alerted to suspicious bets on a game of his that year. The league had cleared him of wrongdoing. In a statement to NPR, Rozier's lawyer said Rozier was not a gambler and that he, quote, looks forward to winning this fight. The second indictment alleges that crime groups used former NBA stars like Phillips to lure unsuspecting victims into high-roller underground poker games, then cheated victims out of tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars. Becky Sullivan, NPR News.
The NBA has placed both players on leave from their teams and says it will continue to cooperate with the relevant authorities. Social media site Reddit is suing artificial intelligence company Perplexity over alleged data theft. NPR's Bobby Allen reports it's the latest legal battle over the controversial data collection practices of the AI industry.
Reddit says AI search engine Perplexity and other data scraping companies engage in a industrial-scale, unlawful collection of comments from millions of the site's users. Lawyers for Reddit compare the actions to would-be bank robbers who can't get into a vault, so they break into an armored truck instead. Perplexity denied the allegations, saying its practices remained principled and responsible. A wave of lawsuits are now playing out centered on how AI companies train chatbots to become so powerful. Vast corners of the internet have been scanned without permission, spurring copyright lawsuits from publications like the New York Times. In this case, Reddit says other AI chatbots have struck licensing deals, but Perplexity has refused. Bobby Allen, NPR News.
The Dow Jones Industrial Average is up 123 points at last glance at 46,716. This is NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. In its ongoing negotiations with colleges, the White House has reached its first deal with a public university, the University of Virginia. From our higher ed desk, GBH's Kirk Carapezza reports that UVA settlement could have implications for colleges here in Massachusetts.
Under the deal with UVA, the Justice Department will stop federal investigations into what the Trump administration calls illegal diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. In exchange, UVA will stop considering race in hiring, admissions, and scholarship programs and regain eligibility for future federal grants. The Justice Department says UVA will also be required to submit quarterly admissions data through 2028. Legal experts say colleges in Massachusetts, including Harvard and UMass, can anticipate the same requirements could be imposed on them. In Boston, Kirk Carapezza, GBH News.
GBH News has added another affiliate to its Connecting the Commonwealth roster of newsrooms across the state. We have partnered with the Worcester Guardian as a way to expand our and their in-depth coverage of civic issues in Central Mass. The collaboration focuses on local reporting that highlights challenges and opportunities in Worcester, including elections, housing, education, public health, and the local economy. The Worcester Guardian is a nonprofit newsroom that also has partnerships with Worcester State University and Boston University, which help support its reporting and community engagement work. 59 degrees in Boston. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Fisher Investments. Fisher's dedicated team of specialists provide resources on investing, retirement income, estate planning, and more. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. Investing in securities involves the risk of loss.
Welcome to hour number 3 of Boston Public Radio. Jim Brady and Marjorie Egan. We are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We are going to be at the Boston Public Library tomorrow with a really great show. We've got historian Doris Kearns Goodwin with us at 11:30, and the Mayor of Boston, Michelle Wu, will be with us from noon to 1 for another edition of Ask the Mayor, plus Live Music Friday.
Plus, we can't say enough times the reason Doris is joining us. It's the 20th anniversary of her brilliant book about Lincoln Team of Rivals. Joined now on Zoom by John Gruber. John's the chair of MIT's Department of Economics, where he's also the Ford Professor of Economics. He was instrumental in creating both the Massachusetts healthcare reform and the Affordable Care Act. His latest book is Jumpstarting America, How Breakthrough Science Can Revive Economic Growth and the American Dream. And from time to time, you can catch John as a DJ on MIT Radio's Breakfast of Champions with a set list he's described as, and this is a quote, all bangers. Here's John on the air just this morning, actually.
Now we'll continue with our all-bangers set list with New Politics in Harlem.
Oh, my God.
I love it.
Joining us now is DJ Gruber. How are you, John? Good to see you.
I am great. That was a blast. It was actually my first time ever DJing. WMBR is a wonderful radio station, little known history, originally named WTBS, Technology Broadcasting System.
That's great.
Till in the 1980s, Ted Turner came knocking, and for $50,000, bought TBS, and now it's WMBR, Memorial Basement Radio, 88.1 on your dial, fantastic station with lots of diverse things, and it was super fun. I will say I gained enormous respect for your engineers doing this. I am sweating from trying to run all the different things at once and talk and run all the things. Oh my God, it's really hard.
I know. The engineers, we have John the Claw Parker in there. He's a genius, and he bails us out over and over again. But I just want to ask you, this radio station, I just want to be clear, this is not equations and triangles and stuff like that. It's music.
This is music. Actually, they had the first in the nation punk show. They have the longest running punk rock show in our nation, according to the stage manager, James Rock, who's not only my teaching assistant for my large course in economics, 1401, but also runs WMBR, all volunteer station, great kids and great music. And there's just a huge diversity of music 24 hours a day.
The only time I've seen you quite this upbeat, John, is when you brought a bunch of parrots into the studio with your wife a bunch of years ago.
Yeah, that was really fun.
Okay, so John Gruber, Saturday was the No Kings rally. Estimates are there are as many as 7 million people who participated in thousands of rallies across the country. I'm told you're going to give us sort of a microeconomist's take on the power of such protests. So take it away, John Gruber.
Yeah, so, I mean, take Saturday. It was a beautiful day. We had a huge turnout all around the country. As I was packed into the Boston Common, enjoying all the incredibly clever signs, I asked myself the question, remember, we're the dismal science in economics. We never get to just have fun. We have to always think about it. Asking the question, well, does any of this making a difference? I mean, in economics, we talk about what we call public goods problems. Public goods problems arise whenever an action imposes a personal cost, but has largely social benefit. So it was time out of my day to go do this, but the benefit was not really to me. I mean, I enjoyed reading the science, the benefits to society in terms of protesting, letting my views known. So is it worth taking our Saturdays to do this? All of you who do this should want to ask. Life is about thinking about the costs and benefits of our actions.
But before you do that, because I hadn't heard the term public goods problem before, I want to be clear. I understand the personal cost thing because that's concrete. But does the social benefit have to be concrete? Because what you're talking about is whether or not there is a concrete benefit coming from this. It's more amorphous. Is that covered by that same term?
It's a great point, Jim, and there's two subtleties in what you're raising. One is personal benefit. Let's remember, can be just, I like being out on Saturday, I like being with other people. There's something economics called a warm glow, which is I liking to brag on your show that I went. That's a personal benefit. That doesn't do society any good. It's just, everyone you know who went told you they went.
That's right. I went three times.
It's like being a vegan, right?
Yeah.
I mean, basically, everyone who does it lets you know. So that's a personal benefit.
Before you go ahead, by the way, what that reminds me of, I'm sorry to interrupt you, John. I would say there are about 10 million people of a certain age in this country who would say they were at the March on Washington with Martin Luther King, even though there were 125,000 people who actually showed up.
Or Woodstock.
Or Woodstock. But go ahead, John. I'm sorry.
So those are all personal benefits. This personal benefits of going. So essentially, when you think about your decision to go Saturday, you're trading off my personal costs, which is it was a crowded T-ride, it took time, against my personal benefits. You also want to consider what are the social benefits. So let's say, for example, you say, look, I look at all the benefits, the bragging, the funny signs. At the end of the day, it wasn't worth it. So I don't go. But what I'm missing is the fact that by going, I may be delivering a social benefit. That is, society may benefit from the existence of this protest, and more people may mean a more effective protest. When I make my personal decision, I don't consider that. That's why it's called a public goods problem. And as a typical result, we typically say in economics that public goods are underprovided because people don't account for the fact they're benefiting others by their actions. But are they? That's the question. It's not clear I was. So I could take account my own personal benefits and costs, but I was starting to think, well, is this doing any good? It turns out, or is this just a useless virtue signaling exercise? Or am I actually doing good? It turns out there are two super cool studies which investigate this. And what's great about these studies is they answer an important question and also illustrate how economists think about answering difficult questions. So basically, you'd like to ask, does protesting matter? That's very hard to answer. Okay, the main reason it's hard to answer is because protests respond to what's in the environment. So in a place where things are going bad, more people may protest. In a place that's repressive, fewer people may protest. So the size of the protest, the existence of the protest itself is related to the thing you're protesting, right? So how do you tell whether the protest is making a difference? Well, you take a clever insight, which was perfectly illustrated by Saturday, the weather. It turns out protest size is dramatically driven by the weather. I dare say if it was raining on Saturday, we would not have had as many people down in Boston Common. And in fact, this isn't just a conjecture. Studies have shown that the better the weather, more people protest. And there are two amazing studies to look at this. One looked at the Tea Party protests. Now remember, these were pre-scheduled for April 15th, 2009. So they couldn't predict based on the weather. And it turned out in some areas of the country, the weather was good that day. In some areas, it was bad. What they found out was in the areas where it was raining, the more rainfall there was in an area, the fewer people turned out. Not surprising. But they also found that in those cities, fewer people voted for the Tea Party and fewer people voted Republican. Literally, the sunnier it was, the more people turned on that day, controlling for all other days, the more people turned out, the more people voted Republican. Here's an even cooler example.
That is incredible.
Here's an even cooler example. Earth Day, April 22nd, 1970. Between 20 and 25 million folks participated in what was at the time the largest organized demonstration in human history. What was Earth Day? They set up a variety of engagements around the country, from teach-ins to tree plantings to demonstrations to river cleanups. Basically, the idea was to create a long-lasting engagement among the population in important environmental issues. There's a great example in the paper I'm going to cite from Michigan. This is a local student who basically decided there was a section of the Kalamazoo River in Albion, Michigan, that could be cleaned up. He led a bunch of volunteers to clean it up. They created a park there that still exists today, and he went on to become a leader in the environmental movement. Once again, the success of Earth Day was very dependent on the weather. Places where it was bad weather, ironically, on Earth Day, They did not get as much participation in these activities. Place was good weather, they did. Guess what? There was incredible long-lasting effects. Here's the amazing fact. If you look at places where the weather is particularly good that day compared to all other days, okay, 20 years later, we see higher support for environmental issues and lower levels of environmental damage. Think about that. That is power. That where they engaged the public and did this activity, literally 20 years later, you can see a benefit for the environment.
So can I go back to your Tea Party? That is amazing, but there's a but, at least the but in my question. Let's go back to the Tea Party example. So the point that you were making, or the research made that you're relating to us, was the fewer people who turned out at Tea Party rallies in particular parts of the country, the number of people who voted Republican in the subsequent election. How about reversing it? Isn't it possible the reason fewer people turned out for the rally is because fewer people were sympathetic to Republicans? So the latter was the cause of the former rather than the former the cause of the latter. Is that clear or no?
Clearly, you've been reading my textbook, Jim.
Is that right?
You're asking about the difficult question that is the obsession of all applied empirical economists like myself, which is between correlation and causation. Mm-hmm. Let me start with a simple story. In ancient Russia, there was a plague that hit some cities and not others. The government, in its wisdom, sent doctors to the cities where the plague was worse. The people looked and said, wherever there's doctors, the plague is worse, and they killed all the doctors.
They killed all the doctors?
So
my God.
So basically, this is the classic problem of correlation and causation. Mm-hmm. That's why these studies are so cool. The way you disentangle that is you find something. You're saying, is it protest causing voting or voting causing protests? Well, the way to determine that is say, find something that affects protests, but otherwise doesn't affect voting.
Okay.
Which is the weather.
Yeah.
The weather on that day. So what they do in these studies is they look at the same area. What they do is they take an area and they say, in that election, relative to that area's history, if the weather happened to be bad that day, what happened compared to another area that had the same voting history until April 15, 2009.
I see.
And the weather was good. So you're running what we call a natural experiment.
That's great.
And that's how you get around that.
Okay, I'm not good in math or any of this stuff, so forgive me for that. But here's my question. If we had the biggest demonstration of all time in 1970 for climate, people are more concerned about the climate because the climate is getting worse, but it certainly hasn't changed how people vote. It doesn't show up in the polls to be very high, and we have the climate destructor, Donald Trump, that's shutting everything down to try to make the air cleaner and the water cleaner. So what does that say?
You guys are hitting some deep topics in economics. You just raised
topics,
another topic,
right?
Which is why economics is different from many other social sciences, which is we focus on explanatory factors, not explaining the whole story.
Okay.
What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is we're interested in does A cause B, not is A the only cause of B.
Okay.
Those are two very different questions.
Okay.
The right way to think about it, Marjorie, is support for the environment would be even lower if it wasn't for Earth Day.
Okay.
So the fact for the environment is not high doesn't mean Earth Day failed. You have to think about the counterfactual, which is what is the world without Earth Day? And this study says the world without Earth Day would be even less supportive of climate initiatives.
So we're talking to head of the economics department at MIT, DJ and meteorologist John Gruber. So, John, can we do one more mathematical thing to get you to weigh in about potential impact? We have tried to get this woman on the show, and actually she's one of the few people who doesn't even return our calls, much less say yes. Erica Chenoweth is a political scientist down the street from you, down Mass Ave at Harvard University. And she's, I guess, famous for sort of updating a theory that was around for quite a while, I guess, that if a total of 3.5% of a population actively participates in protests, it ensures serious political change. I know it's not your study, but based on what you know of this, does this hold water in your estimation?
Well, first of all, you gave me a great opportunity to plug why MIT is a better place than Harvard. So let me just say you just did that for me. So I appreciate that.
Well, you know why it's also great? Because you have Sally Kornbluth. We should have said this. Who
Go
stood
Sally.
up to Trump.
All right.
Good for her.
We are such fans of hers.
Go ahead.
What a hero. And grew up in the town next to me in New Jersey.
Oh, really?
Look, when economics, you've actually expanded on Marjorie's question. Think about three different things we could do with data. One is we can ask, does A cause B? We can ask, does A explain all of B? And then we can ask, how does certain levels of A, do different levels of A matter for B? Not just does A cause B, but is there a function where there's sort of some cliff? And the answer is generally not. I mean, theories like that are generally based on, I don't know her work, but it's pretty hard typically to find some cutoff. I think typically what we see is more people at a protest is going to lead to more effective protests. I think the notion that some cutoff at 3.5%, I don't know the evidence, so I don't want to poo-poo it too much, but generally in economics, it's pretty hard to find cliffs. Generally things sort of move in lockstep. And so I think the general lesson is not about 3.5%. The general lesson, although once again, I don't know the research, the general lesson is more people participating leads to a more effective outcome. And once again, the most important lesson is that public goods matter. What this means is people under protest. What this means is by just considering our private costs and benefits, we're not protesting as much as we should because we're understating the social benefits. And that's what that Earth Day study shows.
Okay, let's get back to weather for a second here. I know you're not Nostradamus, but I'm going to ask you to sort of be. Let's fast forward a bunch of years. If your theory holds up about good weather, which I think it was in most of the country, but what clearly was in Boston, what's the likely consequence of that based upon what you taught us in the first 10 minutes here?
Yeah, I mean, this goes to both the other 2 points, the 3.5% rule and then Marjorie's point about explaining it. The consequence is not that it means with certainty Donald Trump will lose. Okay, the consequence is if you believe the previous research, there'll be a meaningful shift towards voting against Donald Trump or towards voting for the Democrat. I don't want to say this, maybe some third party, but a meaningful shift against Donald Trump. How big will that be? Different papers, different relationships. I think the main thing is the sign is clear. There clearly will be an effect in terms of moving the vote away from Donald Trump from this day of protests.
Okay, so it seems to me that what we should be doing on these future protests is we should have a rain day, so that if it's not the Saturday with good weather, we change the next Saturday. I don't know if you can do that with so many logistics.
It's pretty hard given Boston weather to predict that with fine enough details. Yeah. But look, it is really it's fast. I think the real lesson, Marjorie, is look. You might ask, gee, we had one of these a few months ago. Why are we having another one? The answer is everyone matters.
Yeah.
So the answer is, as long as Donald Trump is behaving the way he is, we should continue to have these protests.
You know, we're talking to John Gruber, who's the head of the economics department at MIT. John, thanks to you, if we can just, in the few remaining minutes, talk about another thing that I don't understand. You were kind enough to get us a colleague of yours, who actually was introduced as a co-author of yours, who, along with two others, won the Nobel Prize for Economics, and two of them, including Simon Johnson, your buddy, joined us. And I know you went to the awards, which is really sent us photographs. Could you explain what the people who won the Prize for Economics a week or so ago won for?
Sure, yeah. So I think you can view the econ this year as almost sort of a continuation of last year. So it's like a 2-year set, because basically the motivation was the same. The motivation was that we had a set of models about what causes economies to grow, really growing out of the work that the famous economist Bob Solow did here at MIT, that were not really satisfactory for explaining a lot of what we saw about growth in the world. And this led economists to try to think about new factors that cause economic growth. And the reason it's worth 2 Nobels is what's more important than economic growth? I mean, that's sort of the driver of social progress. And so basically, last year's award was about how institutions drive growth. You remember the work by Simon Johnson and Daron Acemoglu and James Robinson was about how places that basically had more developed institutions grew faster, better court systems, etc. This year, the award is about how innovation drives growth. And to think about why this matters, let's go back to think about the most dismal of all the dismal scientists, Thomas Malthus, the philosopher, who back in the 1700s pointed out something quite simple. He said, look, agricultural land is in fixed supply, and the population's ever growing. So by definition, we're going to run out of food. So his book predicted cycles of mass starvation throughout human history as the population could get culled down back to the group that could be supported by the land. But guess what? We're fatter than ever. Malthus was clearly wrong. Okay, indeed, production of food is rising per capita since 1950. While the population's exploded, per capita, per person production of food is up 40%. What did he miss? He missed productivity, in particular agricultural productivity. And this is a microcosm of what causes modern economic growth, which is productivity, innovation. And the first winner of the prize this year is really split between two groups. The first one is Joel Mulcair, an economic historian, who answered a key question. He said, look, human beings have been inventing stuff forever. The wheel, fire, all the way back, okay? But our standard of living was not that different in 1700 than it was in in the year 1000. It was all pretty crappy, okay? Then things exploded, and things got much better with the Industrial Revolution, and economic growth took off. So what changed? He highlighted that basically for most of human history, innovation was sort of solving a problem just out of saying, oh, here's a problem, I fixed it. I'll fix the next problem when it comes along. I don't know why I fixed it. I just kind of fixed it. This thing worked. I'm off to the next thing. What changed was the Enlightenment and the birth of scientific reasoning and the ability to create a framework why some things worked and others didn't. Basically, the point is, if I can explain why something works, that gives a jump start to someone else who wants to build on that and create something related. So, for example, why did the steam engine come out of the UK and not China? China was arguably a more advanced, this is one of his most famous examples. China was arguably a more advanced economy than the UK in the 1700s. It had been around a lot longer, okay? It was because the UK had an open and curious intellectual debate that allowed for experimentation. And basically, the one way to put his point, which is so cool, is technological progress is as much about culture as it is about mathematics. So just like Daron and Simon's technological progress is about institutions, he said technological progress is really about culture and accepting innovation. The other winners of the prize were Philippe Aghion and Peter Howitt. They basically said, okay, let's take this idea. Remember, I've talked about past Nobel Prize winners like my colleague Josh Angrist. And I've said a lot of what people win the Nobel Prize for is taking really ideas which ex post are straightforward, but bringing them to the fore and formalizing them, creating the tools that you can use them to innovate. Just like Mulcair said, putting them in a scientific framework. What they did is they basically put innovation in a scientific framework and highlighted the force of what they called creative destruction, which is that basically economic growth results from continued innovation that replaces old technologies with new ones. So from the horse-drawn carriage to the car, etc.
The disruptors, essentially, right?
Disruptors.
Yeah.
But disruptors destroy. Disruptors don't just create, disruptors destroy, but we call that creative destruction. Why that's so important, which is that it leads to 2 points. One is society needs to embrace change, and society needs to recognize that change creates losers, and emphasizes the need to complement innovation strategies with protection strategies. That if we want to really innovate, especially in a democratic system where people have votes, we need to worry about protecting the people who are going to lose from that innovation through retraining and through other systems. And that's the real insight there.
Can we tell you, those were all bangers, the whole thing.
I love talking to you, John Gruber. I feel like, I feel smarter after I talk to you.
All bangers. And by the way, if you caught the beginning of my show, the motivation for that is one of the single greatest episodes of television in history, in my view, is the episode of Succession called Too Much Birthday. It's about when the spoiled first son, Kendall Roy, has a multi-million-dollar birthday party, but he's so grumpy about it that when he's walking by the room, he says to his assistant, I requested all bangers all the time. This doesn't sound like all bangers to me. And so that's become the house. My wife and I have a joint playlist called All Bangers. That's our go-to saying. So all bangers is how I think about the best songs.
Hey, John, that was great.
John.
Next time you're on, let us know. I'm going to listen. I'm serious. We really want to hear. Take care of yourself.
So much.
Okay,
like
thanks,
I said, I love talking to you, John. Thank you. We've been speaking with John Gruber, Ford Professor of Economics and Chair of MIT's Department of Economics. He was instrumental in creating both the Massachusetts Healthcare Reform and the Affordable Care Act. Coming up after this quick break, Am I the A-hole? This week involves an elderly man living for free in government-subsidized housing. He's paying no rent, no heat, no gas, no nothing. Yet he takes it upon himself to destroy half of the housing project because he wants to have more guests, all without consulting his landlord. Who's the A-hole? I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy. Listen to BPR 89.7 GBH, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. No rent, no heat, no gas, no nothing. Yet he takes it upon himself to destroy half of the housing project because he wants to have more guests, all without consulting his landlord. Who's the A-hole? I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy. Listen to BPR 89.7 GBH, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
The Trump administration's cancellation of billions of dollars intended to help local governments has left local hospitals in the middle of construction vulnerable to natural disaster threats.
Unfortunately, FEMA, even prior to the shutdown, had kind of gone silent on us. And now, with the shutdown, very silent.
Building without FEMA grants. On All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you. And Bartlett Tree Experts, a scientific tree care company providing species-specific care for trees and shrubs for over 118 years. More at bartlett.com.
And Paquin Entertainment Group, presenting Moonwalkers, a 360-degree immersive experience narrated by Tom Hanks, featuring NASA footage, astronaut interviews, and more. Now open. Tickets at moonwalkersboston.com.
Welcome back to BPR. Marjorie Egan and Jim Browdy. We are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Tomorrow we are back at the library. It's Live Music Friday. We have music. We have Doris Kearns Goodwin at 11:30 to celebrate the 20th anniversary of the publication of Team of Rivals. And obviously we're going to talk about current nightmare. And 12 to 1, Mayor Wu, during which time we'll probably also talk about the current nightmare and some other kinds of things. But for now, we sort of won't. Welcome back to another round of Am I the A-hole, where we take supposedly real-life scenarios. Can I explain that? I say that every week. Supposedly doesn't mean we're making them up. It means we don't know if these are real situations. We believe they are.
They're from Reddit. They're from etiquette advice columnists.
And the New York Times, right, exactly. Well, today is from a different source, as you'll hear.
Yes, it is.
Or elsewhere online, and ask you to decide whether the person in that scenario is or isn't being an a-hole, or who is the a-hole in that case. This week's allegedly real entry comes from Reddit, Marjorie. The name of the Reddit user is, quote, I love my daughter Ivanka. He's a 79-year-old refusing to retire government employee, currently living in rent-free, federally subsidized housing.
That is correct.
A really nice federally subsidized
it's kind of like a housing
house.
project.
It's like a huge housing project.
Big one.
Now, after some time away in retirement communities in Florida and New Jersey, this 79-year-old decided to move back into the free housing, but feels that despite serious perks like unlimited food, drink, and other grifting, the house isn't quite what he needs at this stage of his life. Sure, this elderly resident could have gone through the long process of getting permission from the many owners of the property. He decided that at 79, his time was short. So he took it upon himself to do some essentially DIY renovations, tearing down a third of the housing project to build what he says is a huge ballroom.
That's right.
So the number is 877-301-8970. Call or text. He wants to know, is this move a-hole-ish? Should he have considered whether he had the permission to do something like this? Let me cut to the chase. Who's the a-hole? The occupant, temporary occupant, acting like he owns the place, or let's call them the previous occupants and other stakeholders, people who pay for the housing, Marjorie, who think maybe they should have been consulted before the demolition. 877-301-8970. Let me restate, who's the a-hole? Mm-hmm. The temporary occupant in the federally subsidized housing. It's a huge house, very big house, very, very big house, who is making huge changes on his own, essentially, like he owns the place. Or is it the stakeholders and his predecessors who live there who are the a-holes for objecting to what he is doing?
Well, let me say, it was tough for the other tenants because they came home after work one day and they found that half the building was turned into wires and dust and asbestos and the whole, and there were these huge jackhammers and backhoes.
You probably hear the
Oops.
Yeah.
Making all this noise out there. So they were a little concerned that they were going to hear nothing but racket and inhaled dust for like months.
Well, actually, we almost never have sound from these Reddit things. We have sound of the 79-year-old who is like ecstatic about the ballroom construction. This is at some luncheon that he threw. This is the guy who's living in the federally subsidized housing, free food, free drinks, all the grifting you can take in. Here's what he had to say.
You probably hear the beautiful sound of construction to the back. You hear that sound? Oh, that's music to my ears. I love that sound. Other people don't like it. I love it, Josh.
I love it.
I think when I hear that sound, it reminds me of money. In this case, it reminds me of lack of money because I'm paying for it, so it's the opposite.
Sounds like somebody else, but it obviously isn't. 877-301-8970. Who? Is it whom? I always get nervous
What's
around
the question?
You.
Who is
Who
what?
is the a-hole, or is it whom is the a-hole?
No, who?
Who?
Because it is does not take objects.
Okay, is the a-hole whom?
Who is the
Okay,
a-hole?
what if I reverse the sentence? Is the a-hole whom?
No, the a-hole is who.
Okay, fine.
Because is an intransitive verb, doesn't take
Exactly, I was
objects.
going to say that.
Okay.
Kevin, you're in Brighton. Who's the a-hole? Welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me. I love your show. I've been listening for years.
Thank you. That's really great of you. Thank you.
Yeah. So I think very obviously the guy living there is the a-hole. I just bought a house a week ago in Brighton, and having a tenant that would come in and like tear down something, and I'm an Uber driver too. If I were to like have somebody try and take the seat out while driving, it's just,
That's right.
No, by the way, you left one thing out, Kevin. Not only is he a tenant, he's a rent-free tenant. The guy's not even paying rent.
I mean, I think that doesn't make so much of a difference.
Okay.
Like, that's the system set up. But
That is the way it is. It's
even a paying tenant.
Yeah, you got to ask first. You have to ask first and work it all out, Kevin.
So let me ask Kevin, as an Uber driver, if someone said in advance, politely, I would like to remove the rear seat of your car, what would be your reaction to that?
I mean, how much are you going to pay me? Like, it's pretty much.
There's a price for everything, I know. Kevin, thank you
Yeah.
for your call. Call us again. We really appreciate your call. Thank you very much. 877-301-8970 is the number.
Now the tenant is really out of line. Now they're
Why?
requesting that the military come in. We're not sure to help with the demolition. I guess
Mm.
don't know if this is the Marines or the 82nd Airborne or who's going to come in and.
Well, it's
and
federally
help.
subsidized housing. The Marines are feds. I mean, they are. They're federally, subsidized, not subsidized, paid employees when they get paid.
Yeah.
So, in any case,
It's disturbing.
anonymous texter says, all I know is this topic is making me crave tacos. Now, you have to think about that a while. If it doesn't work for you, Google it, and then you'll probably understand what the texter's talking about.
They tore down a school 2 doors down from me, and they built another school. It was hell on wheels for like about 3 years, Jim.
Really?
Hell on wheels, yeah.
Why? Because the construction?
Yeah, the
sound?
construction starts at 7 o'clock in the morning, and they tore down
I
this.
thought you'd do it for the children, no?
Well, they tore down this beautiful school. They should have
Oh.
renovated it. It was kind of sad. It was that lovely old red brick, and now it like this golden mustard brick. I like the old brick, and I think that's the thing. The project that the tenant was in was lovely. That old stone construction,
Old.
a lot of nice relief on the windows,
Yeah.
and beautiful. The way buildings were constructed like 100 years ago, and now it's going to look more like Panera Bread.
Yeah, Panera Bread. I like Panera Bread, actually.
Well, it's got the yellow.
the umbrellas on the-
yeah, it looks like Panera Bread. Somebody said that last night on TV. That's
They
not my
did?
original
You stole
line.
that?
I stole it. Yes, I did.
You felt guilty. Monique, you're in Nashua. Welcome to the show. Who's the a-hole?
The occupant is the a-hole.
Yes.
Why is that?
The occupant has no intention of ever leaving said house. He also is making it very clear, metaphorically, that he has no intention of leaving said house. And we should all be terrified. And those who let the occupant in the house should be ashamed of themselves.
Now, that's a very good addition to the discussion. Monique, thank you for your perspective. We appreciate it. Anonymous texter says, I need more information. What color is this house? What color is the house?
I believe it's a White House.
It's a White House. A White House. That I believe it is too. A White House.
And what's incredible is the part that he's demolishing and going to rebuild.
No.
The part he's rebuilding is bigger
than
the
house
entire
itself.
project.
Yeah.
It's bigger than the whole thing.
Yeah.
So neighbors, might be upset about this because they're squished into this little section while this tenant, who's not even paying rent, has this massive part of the house all for himself.
Can you imagine if everybody in federally subsidized housing decided to just rip down parts of the building because they didn't want it? Serious. That'd be a real thing there.
Yeah, I know. You never know. You never know.
Sheila in Rhode Island, you're on Boston Public Radio. Marjorie Egan, Jim Browdy. Who's the a-hole?
Oh, well, I think that if anybody calls in and says that the occupant is not the a-hole, then clearly they are the a-hole that voted for the a-hole. Pretty clear to me, Jim and Marjorie.
That's a very... So you don't think there's any merit on the tenant's part here for doing what he is doing, is that correct?
That is 1,000% correct.
Okay.
It's just, I don't even have words to describe how mad I am.
It comes through. Hey, Sheila, that's a very good point you made. A couple of good points there. By the way, this has nothing to do with our discussion, but CNN is now showing they actually have video of the Louvre thieves escaping. Oh, yeah. I hadn't seen that last night.
Yeah.
You've seen it?
I saw them. I didn't see them escaping. I saw them breaking into the glass. Pulling the glass things out. Yeah.
Here's an anonymous text says, I think the proper thing to do would be to invite everyone who's subsidizing the housing to a ball once construction is completed. That's actually not a bad idea.
That's a very good point. Here's a couple more texts. This a-hole has absolutely no right to destroy this bigly house, which he does not own. The occupant is a squatter.
Can I tell you, what's interesting? I said this, I don't know if I said it on the air the other day. I would say I don't know if it's an adverb or not, you're going to correct me. The most common odd adverb, which is really a word which I did not know this particular occupant used to use all the time, was bigly. And he never, ever, ever says it now. What do you think that's about? I'm serious. What happened?
I don't know, but that's a good point.
Bigly was huge.
What he says all the time now is strong and powerful.
Strong and powerful, yeah.
Everybody's strong and powerful. It's very strong.
Very powerful.
Very powerful.
Actually, the strongest, most powerful ever. I don't know if you're aware.
That's right. No one's ever seen anything like it. No one has ever seen anything like it.
Never has.
Never been done before.
And I don't think anyone has ever seen a rent-free occupant of this federally subsidized housing doing. I think in this case, he is actually telling the truth.
That's right.
It is happening.
This is a first.
Never.
What are you, 250 years old now?
Give or take a few things.
Yeah, this is a first.
Well, the house is not 250 years. How old is the house?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
In any case, look it up. Rob in Connecticut, you've been very patient. Welcome to the show. Who's the a-hole?
Hey, guys, you're cracking me up here with this one. I guess I would just have to question the veracity of this Am I the A-hole story. I mean, on what planet does a tenant think that they can do this? I mean, who's holding the purse strings here?
That's right.
Decide to appropriate funds themselves? Where are they getting the money for this? Is he coming out of his own pocket? Is he going to put a lien on the house?
Well, he claims he has big friends in high places like Jeff Bezos at Amazon, Tim Cook at Apple.
I don't know. By the way, I said Apple the other day. I think I may have been wrong. It's definitely Bezos. It's definitely Amazon. I'm not sure.
Well, they've eliminated Apple now?
No, they didn't eliminate. I think I wrongly stated.
No,
Apple was on the list?
It was previously reported, but something in the story today, no, they've eliminated Apple, so maybe they were never in there. But it was previously reported that they were. But now it's Amazon, Lockheed Martin, Planeteer Technologies.
I don't know
never heard of them.
By the way, but Rob, thanks for the call. Rob made a wonderful point. Has there ever been a tenant before ever in federally subsidized housing who has decided to do this?
Let's face it, there's never been one as bigly or as strong or as powerful.
As this one.
That's right. Never seen anything like it.
By the way, it is true. There's nothing that anyone has ever seen anything like. It's never been that big. It's never been that whatever.
Big, that powerful. This is going to be one powerful ballroom. Let me tell you that right now.
877-301-8970. If you just tuned in, we have this 79-year-old guy who lives in federally subsidized housing who decided to do major reconstruction without getting any input from what I'm calling stakeholders. For example, the people who are paying for the federally subsidized housing. That'd be the taxpayers or their representatives. And our question, which is the exact same question we ask every 1:30 on a Thursday, who's the a-hole?
Here's Brian from Paxton. We all know who the a-hole is. Putting a 90,000 square foot ballroom onto a 55,000 square foot mansion is like putting an auditorium attached to a Reed's Ferry shed.
By the way, it's totally true. You mentioned this. For those who don't know, this huge hypothetical thing we're talking about, the expansion is almost twice the size of the footprint of the thing.
Yeah. There's
it's a White House. It's a White House.
There is the West Wing that goes out to the other end. There used to be the East Wing. It's being demolished as we speak. But the White House itself is going to be dwarfed by this ballroom.
Here's a good one. Anonymous texter. What's the big issue? I heard his wife isn't using her office over there anyway. Tear it down. That actually is true. The wives generally use this part of the house.
You know what I was reading? That a lot of guests come in through the White House. That's where they came in, through the East Wing. And there would be like the Christmas decorations and stuff like that. Remember when Melania had the controversial Christmas decorations? Yeah. People would come in that way.
No, actually, they spoke to Caroline Levitt, talked to her about it today.
Yeah.
There's a ladder that gets you up the rubble. You just like the Louvre guys. You climb up the ladder.
Climb the ladder.
And Anonymous texter says, don't ask me, but somehow Jim is the a-hole. That usually takes about 10 minutes.
Well, somebody texted before. They said usually they think you are the a-hole, but someone else has taken your position. You've been superseded, Jim, by somebody else. Here's a texter who says, normally I hate this segment because of the name, Who is the a-hole? However, this time I have to say the tenant is a major a-hole.
Well, that's one person's opinion, of course. That's Jim in Rhode Island would be next on Boston Public Radio. Welcome, Jim. Nice to talk to you.
Well, I guess the question for me is, has anybody asked Melania who the a-hole is?
Well, I think we know what she thinks,
we haven't seen her lately. We haven't
No.
seen her for a while.
I mean, literally, he's kicking her out of her house.
Well, in all seriousness, it appears she does not use the facilities that much.
I think she does. I think she does sleep in. Well, he said that they've never had separate. They've always had separate bathrooms in their life.
Bathrooms?
Yeah, bathrooms. They never had this.
Oh,
they never shared the
that.
same bathroom.
I never heard that when he said
that. Yeah, he's got a thing about bathrooms, so they've never been in the same. He says it's the key to their happy marriage.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Jim, that's a good question. Thank you very much. Here's an interesting one too, which I think you could probably answer. Anonymous texter, does the size of the ballroom in some way compensate for the size of the tenant's hands? That's a really interesting question.
There was a sign at the protest in Boston last week, small hands, big grift.
Yeah.
So there you go.
That's pretty good.
Denise and Dennis says, hello, in the real world, a convicted felon would have a tough time finding any public housing.
That's a very good
Excellent point.
That is a really good point, by the way. 877-301-8097. It's a little slight variation on our typical Thursday afternoon. Who is the a-hole discussion? Sheila in Boston, welcome to the show. Hi, Sheila.
Hi, yes, long-time listener, first-time caller.
We are really happy about that. Thank you. Go ahead.
I'm still laughing with he has something with bathrooms.
Yeah.
Is that why all the files were found in the bathroom?
So that's this
right.
particular
He was in there for
79-year-old.
hours.
That's right, reading the files. Good point. Go ahead.
Maybe he had to sit down and go through each file. Don't know.
Could be.
Yeah. So
could be.
We all know who the a-hole is.
Yes, we do.
My situation here, my thought here is, in a community village such as that, with free rent and free everything, don't they have a coalition or a housing group of people that speak up? Where's everyone at?
Well, they have had lots of people. They didn't know this was going to happen. Remember, Sheila, he said he wasn't going to touch the White House.
He said it a day ago.
Yeah, a day before it began.
2 days ago,
It was going to be protected. It would be away from the ballroom. But then all of a sudden, this teardown began. The bulldozers or whatever they use. What do they use to tear down houses?
That's another
backhoes or something. I don't know. They just showed up
House
and started.
ripper downers, I think they're called.
They
just showed up and started demolishing.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I don't understand how the American people in the Oval Office, at the White House, working in Congress and everywhere else are allowing him to do this. How can you sit with a straight face or a smile on your face seeing that our history is being demolished?
Well, that is the question every day about everything, Sheila. Well put, and thank you for posing it. We really appreciate it.
Now, here's a theory.
What is it?
The destruction of the East Wing is a direct result of his feelings regarding the No Kings protests all around the country.
So an anonymous texter says, I've made many updates in my apartment because the landlord doesn't respond to my maintenance requests. Got to get done regardless. Let's see what they say when I move out, or maybe I'll never move out.
Well,
by the way, a lot of people have speculated about the fact.
Somebody right here. Has anyone thought about the huge party the tenant is going to throw in January of 2029?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
877-301-8970 is our number.
You know, somebody else points out, normally when someone who lives in public housing damages the place they're living in,
that's right.
Eviction.
Yeah.
Proceedings are starting.
That's a very
Let's go.
Or at least it is like almost orgasmic when he talks about it.
When he talks about the sound of construction in the morning.
Yeah.
It's like Naples.
Love that. Yeah, this is very romantic. It's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay.
Yeah. I don't imagine the soundproofing is exquisite in the White House either. All these heads of states coming over.
It's also an old building.
It's an old building.
It's a White House for purposes of these discussions.
It's a White House.
Someone asked what color it was. It's a White House.
A White House. You're correct.
Okay, Lynn in Buzzards Bay. Hello to you.
Hi. Nice to talk to you guys again.
You too. Thanks. What's up?
So first off, I don't know why we are all surprised. I am, but I still am amazed when I am. But one, I got to go back to that other caller that did call in about the history. I'm wondering what kind of history is being demolished at his choice.
We don't know. Many people have talked about how, all these previous first ladies had their offices in there. We had a woman on this morning who used to work in that office. I mean, there was. I'm
Deesha
sure
Dyer, who was the social secretary for Obama's for 2 years.
I would hope they went in and got stuff out that had historic value, Lynn, but we don't know. You know.
And whose name? The other thing is whose name is actually on the deed to this White House?
I think ours, actually. I don't mean ours like Marjorie, me, and you. I mean, I think the American people who subsidize this residency. Lynn, thank you much for the call. We appreciate it. We really appreciate it. So the anonymous says something like an earlier caller said, the owners are collectively the a-holes for letting such a tenant in to begin with. They did no due diligence, didn't check with his previous landlords.
That's a good one. Is a great
That's
point.
A good one.
Yeah. They got that one letter from his doctor saying he was in excellent health, and there you go.
One of my favorite moments all the years we were on the air, that was that doctor, the hippie doctor from New York, whose name I forget.
He's no longer
who died,
with us.
unfortunately,
Yes,
who
he did.
ultimately said that Trump wrote the letter. Remember they raided his office? And then one day we're at the library, and who presents
His
herself?
first wife.
His former ex-wife,
Yeah.
who said we were being unkind to him, even though
said
it's
he was
her
a lovely
ex-husband,
guy.
that he was a wonderful guy.
Well, I think he was under a lot of pressure, Jim, at that
You think
particular
so?
moment to say that there had never been, no one's ever seen
Isn't that
anything
what it
like
said?
the health of Donald Trump. It's never been anything like it. No one has been any more healthy. He is the most healthy president ever to set foot in that house. The white one.
Exactly, the white
Okay.
one. Bob in Georgetown, hello to the show. Hello to you, I meant, not hello to the show. Hello, show. Hi. What's up?
Hi, show.
Hello.
I'm on the planning board in Georgetown, and
good, perfect.
I can tell you that you could not build a ballroom on your lot without getting permitted. What about the stormwater regulations?
That's right. Stormwater regulations.
Certainly, there'd be
rode roughshod over
there'd be
those.
authorities.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, really. In Georgetown, you better be. There would be overriding authorities, but aren't there zoning regulations?
That's right. He didn't get a variance.
He got
right?
a nothing.
He got
Essentially
nothing.
just did it.
Well, as Heather,
Who did the site plan review?
Nobody.
Can't demolish before you have a site plan review.
It was. What would happen to him up in Georgetown? Would we talking 3 to 5?
Well, that's a good question. What would happen if he did this to his place in a federally subsidized housing in Georgetown, Bob?
Cease and desist.
Okay.
And a fine.
And a fine.
And with that would be fine. Yeah.
You know what? You might have to deport him.
Bob, thank you.
You might have,
I mean,
deport him to Ipswich.
you might have to deport him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bob, thank you much for the call. Appreciate it.
As Heather Cox Richardson, I love her,
She
points
wrote about
out.
this?
Yes, she did. She
What'd
said,
she say?
no permits, no signs of weatherproofing for construction project just begun before the winter. No indication that the history of the paintings or the artifacts in the East Wing were preserved. This is only construction of the people's house.
Yeah.
You know something?
What?
I think this has bothered people a lot more than I thought it would.
Well, the visual, I think, is a huge part of this.
The visual is very upsetting because if you go to D.C., what do? You go see the Washington Monument, you go see the White House,
you go
see Capitol Hill, you go to see these things, and people, I think, have an attachment to them as sort of the symbols.
Well, there'll be less to see, so let's save a little time. And so, Jared, have I'm assuming you've heard part of this who's the a-hole kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
79-year-old, federally subsidized housing, pays no rent, by the way, which is more incredible.
Doesn't
and he
even pay for his
decides,
heat, light, or food.
consulting
Everything is free.
Nobody, including the stakeholders who paid for the housing, to demolish part of the place. Who's the a-hole?
Well, I think because
We need a mic, please.
I think because he doesn't know how to. Hello, am I on? Is this thing on?
Now you are.
There you are.
Yes,
Go ahead.
excellent.
Because he doesn't know how to budget. I think that makes him.
Very nice.
Yeah.
That is a great point. Why didn't we think of that, Jim?
Yeah, 200 to 300 in just one day. Can you imagine?
By the way, there's no way it's going to be. I mean, I don't know anything about anything, but no way it's going to be 300.
No, it's going to be
either.
500 at least.
And you know what? They're going to be working all day and all night.
Yeah.
So I have late
And they
breaking
won't get paid.
Whoa.
You both have been invited to my table at Toscano.
Oh my God.
That invitation just came in, and I texted him back. I said, "Do I have to?"
Is that Richard?
Yes.
He is. He is
Jared
an
has
impressive
a
character.
corner table at Toscano.
does,
It's
he
one
does.
of those higher up ones. What do you call those?
Higher up.
High tops.
Higher up.
Higher up
it's
top,
Very
yeah.
swish.
Yeah.
Very swish.
Well,
thank you, Jared.
I accept. Thank you very
Oh,
much.
absolutely.
Thank you, I do.
Now we just have to find a date.
Okay.
The
well,
pasta bolognese.
so all the food is really good.
It's a great
really
restaurant.
good.
And my
Okay.
favorite street in Boston.
Charles Street. So gorgeous.
It's beautiful.
Okay, so what do you? What's the show thing?
So there is one last book from David McCullough that has just been published. I'll speak with his daughter, Dory McCullough.
great.
Dory
great.
McCullough Lawson, who worked with him for 30 years of his career, and they have collected, she and his longtime researcher have collected essays, speeches, some never before published. So we'll have another look at his look at American history.
Can I say, it's hard to rate guests we've had over the years. When David was good enough to be on
my
the show,
God.
we were in awe. And the weird part of being in awe of somebody like him is how down to earth and
down to earth.
human and funny.
And we had his son.
He was great, yeah. I mean, just absolutely.
remember that?
He made the famous speech.
At Wellesley College, at Wellesley High School.
Wellesley High School, yeah.
And said kids weren't that special.
Yeah.
And you know what hit the fan after that?
Yeah. Special kids are really upset about it.
Stuff hit the fan.
Okay, what else do you have?
Mary Grant will be here. We'll talk about,
I like her
I
a
don't know
lot.
if you've heard, the first arts protest in this moment is happening in November. So we'll talk about arts in this moment and how it can be used as protest.
You mean the money shortage for funding?
It's just how artists can gather, how institutions can gather, and in their own creative way launch a protest. It's happening in November, so we'll talk about that. And then we have the author behind the new cookbook, Dobre, Baking from Poland and Beyond, who has a bakery in Berlin, will be here to talk us through European baking.
Excellent.
Okay, we're going to get some dates for the corner table at Toscano.
Deal. See you.
Jared,
That's
thank you very
Jared's
much.
table to you.
Jared's table. That is correct.
All right, see you later.
Thank
Take
you,
care.
Jared. Thanks
Bowen,
for the
2
book,
o'clock.
Jared, too.
Right here on, what you call it? What is this, GBH?
This is GBH.
89.7.
That is
Sorry,
correct,
forgot
Jim.
For a second. Yep.
Okay, thank you very much for listening to another edition of Boston Public Radio. I was thanking the people who listened.
People listening.
Yes.
Sorry.
Keep up with us 24/7. If you'd like to, by way of our podcast, we have a great TikTok page at Boston Public Radio as well. Tomorrow, we're going to be back at the Boston Public Library. This is going to be a great show with Pulitzer Prize-winning author and the famed historian Doris Kearns Goodwin to celebrate the 20th anniversary of her best-selling Team of Rivals book about the presidency of Abraham Lincoln. Plus, Mayor Wu will be with us from noon to 1 for Ask the Mayor, taking our questions and yours, and a special Halloween edition of Live Music Friday with players from the Rasa String Quartet. We want to thank our great crew, Zoe Matthews, Aidan Conley, Nicole Garcia, Hannah Loss. Additional support from Mira Donaldson, Brad Lewis. Thank you for running our YouTube stream. Our engineer is John the Claw Parker. Our executive producer is Jamie Bologna. The Culture Show with Jared Bowen is up next immediately after us on 89.7 GBH. I'm Marjorie Egan.
Jim Browdy.
Thank you for tuning in. Hope you can tune in tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
Tomorrow's going to be a great one. Or if you're in the neighborhood, stop by the Boston Public Library and have a great afternoon.
What's trending? What's interesting? What's going on around town? We're talking all things arts and culture on The Culture Show, next on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you. And Minus 33 Merino Wool in Ashland, New Hampshire. Since 1916, makers of all-natural merino wool underwear, outerwear, and New Hampshire-made socks. Their merino wool clothing and accessories are available at minus33.com. And the law firm of Davis Malm. Their family law attorneys are committed to your family matters. Learn more at davismalm.com. Davis Malm. Lean, agile, strategic.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at GB.